I remember when I was 12, my parents and we took a tour at the Walt Disney Animation Studio in Orlando, and it was wonderful to actually see an animation studio, but however, it was apparent that the secrets that they have was definitely elusive to the outsider. Because here as a tourist, we were behind a plexiglass, so that plexiglass was pretty much like a solid metaphor for like that veil as mystery. But so flashing forward, I still wanted to learn animation, but it was impossible at the time, because in order to learn, you would have to go to out-of-state university or a private college or even overseas, and it was virtually impossible for me at the time. Earlier last year or so that I started to take animation courses, and I'm telling you, I have seen so many online animation courses, but there was always still that veil of mystery. Flash forward to this year, I came across AMB's YouTube channel, AMB Real Animators Training, and I was blown away. I just couldn't believe, the knowledge that he was putting out there, the lectures that he was doing. It just pretty much ripped that veil of mystery off the face of the earth. And the thing that really sets his archive, his online lectures and stuff apart from everyone else is the basics. That's the one thing that a lot of the books, a lot of the online animation stuff lack, was the extreme basics, And when I started on that archive, I started understanding the spacing, the timing, the arcs, the slow in, the slow out. And with each exercise, it builds up on each other. And as a result, I start seeing, the arcs. I start understanding and timing things in my head. And it was just so fascinating. And because of that, it just helped revive, my lifelong desire of learning animation. And it just made me so happy that I'm able to pursue and to dream of becoming an animator. So thank you.
So, are you going to join the library?
Hello and welcome once again to another edition of AMB Animation Livestream. Well, it's Christmas time, so I figured we're going to have a fun stream today. Well, fun for those of you that enjoy hand-drawn animation, because I've been doing a lot of not necessarily hyper-realistic, but a lot more anatomical-based characters of late, and my cartooning is a little bit out of practice, so I figured the best way to get back into working those cartoon muscles is to study a scene, do an animation breakdown. So I'm going to take a classic cartoon character, a scene with Donald Duck. I looked at some Chuck Jones, I looked at some Grinch, and I'm just I'm doing this stream for you guys, and I'm doing it for myself, and I've got to do something where I feel I can really learn with animation that really impresses me, stuff that's really like, much as I love Chuck Jones's drawings, nothing, I could not find anything Christmas based. There's plenty of good animation in Chuck Jones stuff, but the Grinch That Stole Christmas, the Bugs Bunny Christmas, there was nothing I saw in there that I could really make an interesting live stream or study from that really would get my work those dust the cobwebs of my cartooning, which I had a little play with Woolly Woodpecker in the last stream, but I feel I want to do some study, so I thought we'll do a Christmas study stream today. we've got some of you gathering, wishing me happy Christmas. So it's good to have you. Uh, the old Gargoyles show was just TV, Dylan draws. I mean, it's naff. It's like Batman the Animated Series. It's nicely designed. I get it. A lot of people are into this stuff. I was into it too. But as learners of the craft, as people who want to become good at a craft, you've got to see something for what it is. It's mass produced, churned out, farmed out, laid out in the US. Um, that's where all the real work is done with the layout drawings. And it's farmed out to be produced on the cheap. It's timed out with before the animation is not even thought about. They have the exposure sheet and the dope sheet. They go layout drawing one, layout drawing two, raise arm within this frame rate. The guy in Japan or China or Indonesia or the Philippines or India or wherever they farmed it out to. I get there's a lot of worship over the Japanese anime, blah, blah, blah. But these guys working on these things, they don't care. It's a factory. They just want to churn it out. They just want to get their money. They don't care. It's not like a director looking at a scene and trying to push the best out of his animator. It's cheap, easy, quick, run of the mill stuff. Dylan draws, all right. I'm going to say this now. If you just understood a little bit about professional practice, I know I've seen what you can do. You already have the skills to animate to the level of Gargoyles television animation. It's not hard, especially if somebody was to give you the layout drawings and you were to just fill in the gaps, which is all it is, right? So it's not, it's a nice show. There's plenty of things to like about it. It's a nice show. It's well written in places. Music is good. Character design's pretty good. It's a great watch. It's entertainment. We do these things to watch, right? It's not just about how good is the animation, but this channel, that R in the back, is about training you guys to be masters of your craft. And in order to be a master of your craft, you have to be able to see things. You have to be able to understand the way things are. It's like the Gargoyles, all of those Animaniacs, Tiny Toon Adventures, Goof Troop, DuckTales, Gummy Bears, whatever, those TV cartoons, they're great on many levels, but animation is not one of them. It just isn't. Because this had to be churned out, mass produced. So a lot of people, just because they're young adults, get into the animation thing and say, I want to be an animator because I loved Tiny Toons and Animaniacs. There's a lot of people, as I'm doing these streams, wasn't so successful in the UK where I live, but a lot of Americans, most of my audience are, thank you very much, seem to really get off on the Animaniacs and the Tiny Toons and these Batman the Animated Series, and that's why they want to be animators. That's great. Inspiration is great. But hopefully as you develop the skills, as you understand the craft, it's like learning to be a classical musician. My daughter's learning to be a classical musician, and she can still like Ludovico Einaudi. She can still like Yanni, but she now knows that, like, after learning all the Rachmaninoff, that it's a joke, really. I mean, doesn't mean it's bad, doesn't mean it's wrong. You can even prefer to listen to that stuff, but as a craft, the craft aspect, you've got to get real. You've got to be honest with yourself, otherwise you're never going to grow. If you think something like Batman the Animated Series and Gargoyles is the pinnacle of animation, or even Akira, then you haven't learned. Right? Maybe you can look at Akira and say that's the pinnacle of layout, that's the pinnacle of production design, that's the pinnacle of shot composition. There's plenty of things it can be the pinnacle of. But if an animation isn't just moving a character, but if you're talking about the character acting, the character moving, the timing, the laws of animation for character animation, then you've gotta start to take the craft seriously, and you've got to start learning. so that you can see these things. All right, so that's my answer to that question, Dylan Draws. Brittany Goddard, hello to you. Now we've got enough people in the audience for me to do this. Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas to all of you. Enough of that. Right, so I've been waiting to do that. I said when we get past 10 members in the audience, I'll do that. Right, before I begin the stream, I wasn't planning to give Dylan that little talk. So this little talk, we've 10 minutes in, but I wasn't planning to give Dylan that little talk. Brian, blessed Santa. Okay, right. I got a message from Hervonia Baker, right? And this message, I think, is a good message to read out, and my response is a good message to respond to her, because it ties into what Dylan was saying. So Hervonia sent me a message, AMB. When I draw, now just saying, when I feel the inspiration to answer a personal DM, I do, but I get so many DMs and it's really difficult for me to answer each and every one of you. So I'm not saying don't DM me, but please don't expect a personal answer. In this case I did, but the best way to reach out to me is in the Facebook group or online. So just saying, if you want more of a chance of an answer. So Hervonia DM'd me on X. And she says, AMB, when I draw traditionally in my sketchbook, which is the best way to learn, I notice my drawings tend to lean to one side. I don't notice it until I put my drawing in a digital program and flip it. There you go. See, digital always is like the crutch. You can always turn your drawing and look through the light, right? How can I train myself to improve that? Thank you and happy holidays. Now, my answer is not the answer that, like, the answer a salesman trying to sell a course would give was very different to my answer, or the answer of somebody just trying to just always try to send people in circles, because that's what happens. So I gave a very different answer. This is what I said. I said, noticing this is enough. Awareness is everything. Like a sickness, the more attention you give to that sickness, and the more that you desire for it to go quickly, it will stay longer, causing more pain, more fear, and more doubt. Think of an animal struggling in a trap. You know, the more you struggle, the tighter the grip. Do not struggle, do not resist. Embrace your present level. Appreciate that you are on the path to becoming a great and successful artist, and continue to work with faith and acceptance of your present abilities. That's the most important part, which people don't get. And accomplishments. Be thankful that you can draw well enough to actually believe that you can succeed and you have a shot. Because if that were not the case, you would have given up a long time ago. Let things develop naturally. Don't try to force things. So you just do your part and do the right things and give them a chance before changing course, and it'll correct itself. Most people never understand this, which is why they fail. And that's the truth. Most people who are trying to see a Deruji, most people who are trying to improve are just running around on circles. You're like hamsters on a hamster wheel to nowhere. Busy, busy, busy. This, how do I get out of this? How do I do this? Now I stop that. Watching information, this guy said this guy said that, I'll try this, I'll try that. It's like never watering the seed and never being thankful for that seed. So like you guys are trying to do something, and the very fact that you're trying to do that thing is because you believe you can do it. You got to accept that. accepting the whole reason you're doing this, the whole reason you're watching me, the whole reason some of you have invested in my training, the whole reason some of you are watching this live stream and still doing it is because deep down inside there's something of you that says, I know I can do this, I know I can get this right. But the problem is, when you look at what you're doing, you're not happy. And in a way, that's the way things should be. You should never say, that's perfect, I'm going to lie back and just leave things as they are. But you have to be happy that you're on a journey that you've decided to take. And this is your present place in that journey. This is where you're basically saying, okay, it's like getting on an aeroplane on a long haul 30-hour flight and saying, I know I'm going to land unless there's some serious accident, but you're never really thinking about that. You know you're going to land on the other side. It's a boring journey at times. You don't know what to do with yourself. You fidget. You can't fall asleep. It's frustrating. But you know what? You know you're going to get there. And that knowing that you're going to get there, you can't do anything other than just do your part while you're sitting on the plane. And the main thing is that you know you're going to get there. The problem is you're so unhappy with what you're producing on the page, and you're always looking at what other people are producing. You're never accepting that this is what you have done and this is where you are. You don't want to be there. You don't even want to look at it. You just want to, everything you look at when you draw is wrong, 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 wrong. And just imagine that you're carrying that mentality in the next moment. Brain loves a loop, habitual behavior is our way of life. We form a habit and the habit repeats itself. So if your habit, no, this isn't good, and everything you look at outside, that's so great, why am I so shit? Look, I can't get it right. Whatever I do, I can't get it right. And what you're doing is wrong as well, because the actions you're taking are in accordance to that mentality. So you're saying, oh, even though you've just started to do something which has taken you like a day or even a week or even a month, and you think it's not working because you're just too busy thinking it's shit and looking at people who you think are great, and then you just change course. It's like you keep changing course, and you keep changing course, not accepting that that's the journey. Imagine an aeroplane going to New Zealand from the UK, 30-hour flight, right? Imagine if it said, this isn't the way, this isn't the way, this isn't the way, this isn't the way, this isn't the way. I'll get there faster this way. I'll get there faster that way. You ain't getting anywhere. You ain't achieving anything. You're not doing nothing. You're just wasting time on a hamster wheel to nowhere, acting busy and achieving nothing. So that's essentially, I think that's a really important Christmas message that I'd like to share with you guys before starting the stream. Before we go on and do any drawing, the drawings that we're going to do is going to be fun. You're going to watch me study a classic Donald Duck scene. We're going to learn a few things as I learn a few things from it. But I think the most important takeaway, which most people miss, and especially when they're trying to do courses and trying to study and trying to self-help themselves, is this mindset, this mentality of successful behavior. Because doubting and frustration and anxiety and fear and not accepting your abilities, not accepting your potential. Every mark you make, every drawing you make is a step in the right direction, only when you know what direction you are going in, right? If you do not know the direction that you are going in, then every mark you make, it could be the same mark, but without the knowledge of the direction that you're going in, the mark will not help you. You need to understand that. However many marks you're making, If the mind making that mark doesn't know what the hell it's doing or where the hell it's going, and is always thinking that mark is not good enough, you ain't going nowhere. That's all there is to it. So you need to power your pen with the mindset that this is helping. And then every mark you make will be like a stairway to heaven. That's what I have to say. So that's my Christmas message over. Let us start with the animation scene. Hello, so Red Fox, Deruji, Dylan Draws, Brittany Goddard, Cameron Allen, Davidson Black, and Constantinus. How are you? Thank you for joining me. Right. Let us change the scene. Let's have on the other mic and let's begin. So we are studying from Donald Duck Toy Tinkers 1949. Right, so in this particular scene, Donald lands from the chimney. Let me just check how my mic is going. Let me know if I'm having any mic problems and all that kind of stuff, because I can't actually see the chat when I'm studying, but I'm having a quick check now before we begin. Right, okay. So now there's a few frames. So what we're going to study first, what we're going to do on this pass is what we call the pose to pose, right? So effectively, I'm taking a scene from a classic Donald Duck, and I'm going to break it down and I'm going to copy it, but I'm going to not copy it one frame at a time. I'm going to look for poses that I think are the key poses, the extreme poses. Then I'm going to look for breakdown poses, and we're going to build this thing together, right? So I'm going to start by, even though this isn't the first frame, this frame is an important frame for me. So before I start drawing stuff in, I'm going to think about the silhouette of the character, right? This is an important frame for me because it kind of establishes the height and position of my character. So while I'm not going to be thinking 100% volume or all of that stuff, I want to be kind of like finding like a pose where I can like plan everything out, right? So his bag is in a state of follow through, overlap, and drag, right? So I'm just doing a rough silhouette pass. So right, that's my first pose that I've got here. So I'm going to do the next pose. I'm going to look for another pose here, right? So we have got an extreme down pose now, right? So I've jumped a few frames ahead, and I'm putting in the extreme down pose. Right, there's a little bit of a movement on this foot. I want to make sure that I get that in there. Right, so this is a great way. Some of you who followed, like if you're not a new subscriber, you'll know exactly what I'm doing. But this is a great way that once you have gone through the Real Animator Training Library and you understand the laws of animation, you can go and study these scenes, which is what I was telling you about, Dylan, is like you learn all these things, but then if you go and study animation that you like, you then start looking for the law in them. And you'll either find that when you're studying something, hell man, this is so simple, there is very little use of application of law, just the most. Or if you study something like this, you will see it is enriched with so many of those laws, right? So we've got follow through, overlap, and drag, and squash and stretch happening here in these two poses. Right, now before I go on, I'm going to take one more pose before I go back. Right, so we have got, oh, that's a good one. That's that's the extreme. So I was tempted to look for a pose. So I'm gonna here look for my arcing, right? So I'm seeing the arc that the character is. So see how, as I'm studying this animation, I'm not just studying and copying like an ignoramus, like, oh, yeah, I'm copying it. Aren't I making a good drawing of Donald Duck, right? You know, how to get an accurate drawing. Is everything in the right place? I'm not so interested in getting an accurate drawing. I will draw this in and I'll attempt to make it accurate, but I'm more interested in what I'm learning about the animation. So here we can see reverse curve going on here as we go into a stretch pose, right? So here his foot is gonna be here like this. So as I go into the stretch pose, and I'll talk about the drawing appeal and flow and continuity, right? Already we can see this is in line with this, right? So I'll talk about all of that stuff. This is what happens when you don't take your pen off the page. You lose half the drawing. So here we've already got a nice kind of action here, right? As I'm looking at this stuff, I don't care if I've got his head too big or whatever. Right now I'm going to go a few frames before, because not all of my pose to pose is there. Let me just check the health of the stream. Thank you, Rocknick. The lovely Hervonia Baker is here. I'm new to animation, but I think there's a mention of twos and in-betweens. That's jumping too far ahead, my friend. So let us first talk about what comes before that, which is our poses, right? So I'm going to go all the way back now, before the pose, before my first pose, which I had, which was this one, and I'm going to find more extremes, right? So I'm going to come here and I'm going to put this here. I'm kind of animating backwards a little bit, right? Which is something that you would actually do on a scene like this, right? Because he's coming down the chimney and we don't really see all this stuff, right? So he comes out of the chimney there like that. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention reverse curve, right? So here, right, everything is curved this way. Now it's curved this way. Can you see that kind of wave effect that's happening? It's like a bouncing ball as well, you see? You know why in real animator training we learn bouncing balls all the time? This is why, right? Now that's not actually my first pose. I'm gonna look at my first pose, which is gonna be here. This is where the chimney is. We're gonna have a little bit of a foot here. So I'm gonna watch the arcs as well, right? So almost triangular arc occurring. So we just start with that. That is our first pose. It's more like you could call this an in-between pose and not really an extreme, but it's my point of reference from the thing I'm studying from. This is ideally my first pose, right? There's a chimney here in the background. He's gonna come through the chimney here, land, and he's gonna come up here like this. Right, so now we're gonna continue finding our poses. So let me go on to the next one. So this is the push-off pose like a run. Now it's tempting to do the hang time pose, but I don't feel that it's an extreme. I feel this is the extreme. So this leg is gonna come down here, right? It's gonna be higher up compared to, because I've got to remember the angle of this foot, right? That's what we want. Yeah, I can just about see I got that right. So this is the whole point of pose to pose animation, and this is how we study good pose to pose animation. We make sure that we find a really flowing, strong piece of animation, right? And we try to find the poses in there that represent our extreme poses. Now, if you don't know the difference between keys and extremes, that's okay. Many people who believe themselves to be good animators and professional animators don't really know that difference either. And you know what? Some of them actually are what they claim to be. So I'm not having a dig at them, but I think if it's really important to know the trade properly. Like everything, like I don't use that metaphor at the beginning. Everything in life is a journey. So even this scene in animation is a journey, and there are going to be checkpoints on that journey for the route, right? So the extreme frames are like the major checkpoints, right? The major checkpoints that define the journey. So the arc, right? Now the arc is going to have some this head probably needs to be changed a little bit, so I will just tweak that here. So the arc is the main journey, right? But then the keyframes are going to enrich the journey depending on the route you take. So you could get to England to New Zealand via Hong Kong, via Dubai, via Singapore, via the United States, and so on and so forth. So those are your key points. Then you have your breakdowns, which are going to be the, you know, the mid kind of points, not necessarily always halfway between the arcs, right? So between the journey. So you're going to have all these kind of things, and they're going to help make the journey. Like, say you want to go to Hong Kong with a destination to New Zealand from the United Kingdom, and you want to go via Hong Kong. And now you know that the key position is Hong Kong, the extreme position is New Zealand. But then you may find that you can't go to Hong Kong via the charted route. There'll be another route that'll make it more interesting, or a deviation that you can take, but you're still gonna get to Hong Kong, right? So that will be your breakdown, right? The path you take between the extreme and the key, or the key and the key, right? So now I want to look what this bag is doing. This bag is coming down here like this, right? Now this arm is coming up. So again, I'm just working with what I think are extremes, right? Extreme positions. They could arguably be called keys. So we can see this hand is coming up, this body is going down. We've got the arc going here. There's a little bit too much stretch I've put on the hand. Exaggerated it too much even at this point. All right. I feel that's a better. You really want to feel the motion. So what can we see at the moment, right? We can see a bouncing ball in the main character, right? Boink, right? Now we can also see a wave effect happening in the character's spine, right? Here it's now going more this way, and now it's straightening up, so there's a wave effect in the character. We can also see opposing like pendulum swings or bouncing balls. So as the head is going down here, right, we can see the hand going up like this, right? So in all of our extremes and some possibly keys, I can see these are the things that I can see. So when you're self-educating yourself through studying somebody else's animation, it's important that you just don't turn it into a mimicking exercise. You actually look for this stuff, right? Now we're gonna, let me see what happens to his head. Okay, so his head actually gets taller. He straightens up. Okay, so it's important. Yeah, this comes out to the side. Like this. And this comes down. I'm kind of like not taking my pen off the page, but I'm not just focusing on the silhouette. I am thinking mostly of the silhouette of the character, but okay, so his other foot is here. All right, his other foot is here, so this will be bigger, and we can't see that because the bag has dropped down. This bag could pose some problems for me in my study because the screen is very, very dark and the bag color is very, very dark. So I've got to kind of look at what I feel I'm interested to see, because right now I'm not happy with what I've drawn for the bag, but that's what I'm seeing, right? So I'm here to learn as well. Maybe I normally do things that are too, even if I feel the person I'm learning from that I would do it differently and I think I'm a better animator inside, right? It's not the point, right? That's when arrogance kicks in. You may be better, you may feel you're better, and you're not trying to be arrogant, you just feel it, but sometimes it's nice to see the way other people do things, and it enriches your work so much. And I've learned that because you guys love anime so much. And I started making studies of anime basically for you guys, really. But it was actually ended up being for me because it helped me so much. Because while I would always think that anime was kind of bad, limited animation, there is a certain appeal to it. And to always do things in this flowing way, especially as an independent content creator doing stuff on your own a lot of the time, you got to find ways where you can be more economical and still have it looking great. And if there's one thing that anime is, it's not all anime, but some really good examples of it is economical, and a good portion of it does look great. So I learned I never used to use favors so much. I knew of them, but I always thought favors would make things kind of choppy. It wouldn't give me that flowing feel, and it does. But I kind of found that combining the favor with this kind of flowing Disney animation with a bit of that anime mentality, I found it to really be a useful tool. So it's great to study from things, even if you feel that like that thing you're studying from isn't that great, right? But the prerequisite is there has to be something about it that excites you, right? That you find interesting. That's all. Right. So he's a little, see what I can see here, this animator has drawn Donald a little bit off balance, and I'm wanting to fix that, right? But this is what I see. His body is hair and his feet are all hair like this. In my mind, that's a bad pose, right? But I'm gonna just go with it, right? I'm here to step in this guy's shoes and to see what he's done. And he's done a great piece of animation. Sometimes, maybe, the drawing can be off, right? But that's okay. Right, so then he closes his mouth and he says, "Merry Christmas" in this pose. Maybe I'm just off because I can't see what his other foot's doing, and when I draw it in, I'm gonna... So what happens to the rest? I think I will end the animation here, actually. Yeah, the rest of the character is pretty much on a hold. And we just move his hand. His hand just straightens up a little bit with the sack. So I'm just going to go here and I'm going to close the mouth. And I will pretty much do a trace back of my drawing. Alright. So I'm just going to do that. Give me a chance to refamiliarize myself with Donald's head. Right. Right, and then I'm going to do a little bit of something here because the hand just changes and this thing changes as well, right? It's a little bit of something there, right? everything else kind of stays. What about the hand? Do we slow in and out of that hand there? No, that hand is just put on a trace back. Right? It just boils a little bit. Right? So Donald jumps down from the chimney and he says, Merry Christmas. Right? So there we have a nice, it already looks good, right? Even without the keys and the breakdowns. There are some more keys to put in here and some more breakdowns. Again, depending on the animator, he would call these his keys, and then the drawings that I would do, he would call the breakdowns. But I don't do things like that because I always say it's bad to be a control freak, but I got a little bit of the control freak still in me. So I like to get my extreme, like here's my extreme down. Here's my extreme position of where we actually see the character where he's not cut in half. Here's my extreme up. Here's this should be my extreme down. So this is a key, right? But I've put it as a contact position, but actually the extreme is the down here, right? So I've drawn a key here, right? Then here's my extreme landing position, but I need so this again is a key. I should have gone here's the extreme, right? So I've drawn two keys in this pose to pose. So while studying this thing, I've done mostly the extremes with two keys to kind of help me out. Before I go and draw in other keys, I feel confident now that I can draw this in a little bit more. If I can rough out the other keys and see it all flowing even better, but that would be a waste of time because I kind of know that it's already so good. It already works so nicely, right? You can already see it's all flowing. So I'm going to go in here. If you guys have got any questions in the chat, just ask because I'm going to start drawing in this Donald. But I'm going to go in here and I'm going to yellow in these frames. And then I'm going to look at the chat and see if there's a question. And then I'm going to come back and start drawing in these key frames. Right? Extreme frames, key frames. So this is the pose to pose aspect. Now, just because I've used pose to pose, understand that I haven't just used one law. I've used all of the laws going on in here. There's squash and stretch, follow through, overlap and drag. There's arcing. There's slowing in, slowing out. There's solid drawing. Believe it or not, that's what I'm going to be doing now. There's primary and secondary action. There's all kinds of things going on in here. There's appeal, exaggeration. There's staging. He's coming down the chimney. He's saying Merry Christmas. So there's all this stuff going on. Right, so I'm going to go back and start drawing this guy in. And we're going to talk about keeping it solid. So I'm just going to... So it's a small scene, but enough to do a nice series of drawings for the live stream. And I'm going to look at your chat now. I'm going to look at the chat. So we've got Moy turning up, Analia, Donald the Grinch. Nothing going on in the chat. Great, you're all happy to just watch me study this scene. Awesome. Right, so let's go on and draw the next phase. How are we doing for time? 43 minutes. About 20 of those minutes were taken up at the beginning. So we've probably been doing this for 20 minutes now. Just giving myself a little bit of a heads up. All right. Let's go in and let's start drawing our Donald. Right. So I'm going to get a small, how's that? That's good. Right. So he's got a beard on his face. So let's get the beard position in right. And this beard is in a state of follow through, overlap and drag, right? So obviously what's telling me is when the guy who animated this, right, he would have started with a pose like this, but then he would have done straight ahead animation of him coming down the chimney, because you never really draw your first pose with the face being concealed in follow through, overlap, and drag, right? So this tells me that our guy, I don't know the name of the animator who animated this scene. He would have done this particular action using straight ahead animation to work out the follow through of the beard and the action of Donald jumping down from the chimney. Now I can't see the ball on his head, the Santa bubble on his head. So I'm just gonna go ahead and imagine that it's behind the sack, or possibly still concealed by the chimney. I don't know, right? So this is a really powerful way that you can journey into the past. Like, people are always looking for time machines, right? But we actually, our body is a time machine, and our body is a machine, and our mind is the time, our mind. So I can go back in time and literally somebody put a lot of energy and effort and exemplified their talent and skill with this particular piece of work that many people just watch go by in a couple of seconds, in a blink of an eye, just a couple of seconds, but so much nice, great command of the craft. I can go back in time and be mentored by this guy, right? And that is what all of you have the ability to do. Now, you can all do it to a certain level, but it really helps if, like I said earlier, that you know what, you have an understanding of what you're doing, right? Like, I have an understanding of the laws of animation. So having a conversation with a really experienced guy maybe not the best for you, depending on your level of understanding, unless that guy is prepared to really just talk the absolute extreme basics, which is why my course exists, right? But if you're going to study like this, these guys are not alive anymore, or they probably don't have the time to talk to you about the stuff that that you don't know. All you have is the ability to see what they've done and explore what they've done. And I'm doing that here, but I'm doing it with the knowledge of animation law. So I can look at what this guy's done, and I can say, okay, I know exactly that he's used straight ahead to have the guy come down the chimney. He's used pose to pose, reverse curve, squash and stretch, made the bouncing ball principle, offset the body parts, so that basically everything is a series of bouncing balls, one after the other. So here we've got squash and stretch happening on the body more so than the leg, right? And that's how we're keeping this, like Milt Kahl used to say about squash and stretch. I always make sure that it feels like the same piece of meat, right? Maybe it wasn't Milt Kahl, maybe it was one of the 9 old men of some. I believe this was written in The Illusion of Life. That's the thing. So we're stretching the body more so than the leg. If the leg is stretched too much, here I'm now looking that this leg is overly squashed, and I want it to feel like the same piece of meat, right? I'm going to just make my leg a little bit wider. Piss off. Seriously. Right. Sorry. So when I turn my pen upside down to erase, I press something. And I should be grateful for the software in some way, shape, or form, but it annoys me sometimes. Alright, so I'm going to do that. Right. So we have this here, right? And this one up here, shall I even bother looking? I will. So just get it all out of the way, right? So actually what I'm seeing here is we're literally just got the foot at an angle like this, right? So there, bum, 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 right? So let's move on to the next frame. Now there's a lot of frames between these, right? He's come, see here, I can see there's only one frame between actually. He's come down on thirds. Yep. He's come down on thirds, right? Is that my extreme down? Let me just double check that. Yes, it is. So it's all fairly quick. So now we've got squash and stretch going on, but notice the squash and stretch is not really that extreme. And what's happening here is as the body is coming down, the squash and stretch, this leg is already squashing, right? But as his body is coming down, this leg is now in a state of a little bit of stretch, right? And it's this kind of thing that really adds to the illusion of the animation. I'm just gonna erase that away. See now here, people always ask me how do you keep everything so solid, right? Everything seems to be the same size. Well, you're watching it now, right? Notice that I'm only using my light box for things that I have to be 100% in the same kind of place, right? Like the foot here, right? Where he's landing on that foot. But like, I'm not looking at my light box, I'm looking at my shape. And I'm using my judgment to say, okay, how does that shape feel in relation to the other shape, right? Now this is out here like this, and now it's come down here like that. Let's see what the tail does. See, this is something I've noticed, his butt shape. In fact, I'm going to double check because this feels wrong to me. No, it's not wrong. Interesting. You see, I wouldn't do it like that. But that's his distribution of mass, right? So this is a 1940s Disney animator who some people think that I worship these guys. And in some ways I am in great admiration for them. But here I am telling you that I'm studying from him. I personally do not like that, right? But that's okay. I'm not here to do it my way, right? I'm here to learn. We're here to learn. And that's the message I'm trying to share with some of you guys, is you are never going to improve if you're only going to want to study the things that you think are valid or worthy, right? Now, as I said, there has to be some understanding of the craft, right? You can't, you got to kind of have a little bit of understanding of what is good animation and what is bad to kind of, you can't just give everything a chance. It's like getting down on all fours and starting to bark with your dog. Your dog will think you're an idiot, and other humans will think you're an idiot, right? You're not going to have a conversation. You're not going to know what the hell the dog is saying. You might believe you do, but Dr. Doolittle, I don't think you are, right? So let's just okay, so this is the shape. This sack is gonna throw me a little bit because it's so dark and there's a black background, so I have to kind of improvise a bit with what I think, right? So I think we're doing a bit of reverse curve on that sack, if that's coming down here like this, right? right? So we've squashed and stretched down here, but we've got the angle of his butt is going this way, and it feels he's putting his butt that way. But what I don't like about that is we're getting still a lot of the tail consistency. If he's angling his butt this way, that's great, but then the tail should go away. But this guy has done that, so he's taken away the illusion of perspective there, according to me. But doesn't matter. I'm doing a little critique of it, I guess, but I'm also learning, because I am straight up telling you that I feel I'm a good cartoon animator, but cartoon animation is not my strongest point. Very cartoony stuff, and this is for me the pinnacle of great cartoony stuff. The Warner stuff, I think, is actually quite weak. It's not really. I've studied it. There's a lot of nice stuff in there, but a lot of it is just, moving holds and snapping into really strong poses. But this to me is, even though I'm sitting here saying I don't like what he's done there, I don't like what he's done there, it's still animation that I feel I can learn from, because overall I believe this guy is a far stronger cartoon animator than I am, right? So that's what I'm telling you. It's okay to see things that you don't, even if you're trying to learn and you think, but that's wrong, it's okay to say, yeah, it's wrong. But evaluate the greater purpose, right? Overall, this guy's animation, I'm loving it, right? It's stuff that I feel I can do, but his shapes and his choices for getting into these poses are probably a lot more natural than mine, right, in that regard. So this is why I'm studying this piece of animation, because my animation is more based on humanoid anatomical movements, which I exaggerate in cartoon, right? But that doesn't necessarily transition completely well to this beanbag style character animation, right? So here we have our guy coming down like that. Good stuff. Let's see how we're doing in the chat. Oh wow, Live Fantasy is here. Hey, Live Fantasy, very quickly, I'm changing my camera just to talk to, I want to say my man, Live Fantasy, but she ain't no man, I'll tell you that. She's an extraordinarily remarkable, brilliant woman. So, Live Fantasy, keep on doing whatever it is you're doing. That Lion King stuff you are doing is so good and so inspiring. In fact, sometimes I'm not going to say it because I don't want to, well, I have to now. When I see the response, it pisses me off more than I see the response of some of my things, because I think what you're doing is just, you're so deserving. It's just, awesome stuff. Hopefully you've proven to yourself that, there are things in there which you're a little bit stiff, which you can't do what the guys in The Lion King did, but hopefully you've proven to yourself that you could have animated on The Lion King, because the stuff you're doing in there is more than good enough to do what a lot of those guys on that movie are doing. Maybe some of the stuff Andreas Deja did, maybe some of the stuff that some of the other supervisors did, who I don't know much about that movie. I just know Andreas Deja did Scar. I don't know who else animated on it, but there's some other really strong guys in there. Maybe some of their stuff you're looking at and admiring, but I hope you realize that you are more than capable of animating on a movie like that, and you can do it, and it is amazing stuff. I'm so happy for you, and I'm so happy that you're on my stream. Maybe you've gone right now, but I'm so happy that I've been able to tell you and share with you just how pride is not a good thing. It's not a good thing, but I can't think of a better word to use. Just how proud I am of you, Life Fantasy. I really wish that there's a certain animator out there who I know you also respect who worked on that movie, and I really wished he would say something to you. Maybe he has, I don't know, because I think you deserve it. You're really, really something special. Really, really, like, well done. Well done. This is why, I hire you when I get the chance. So keep doing what you're doing. If you've missed the message, you've missed the message, but I have to take whatever chance I have to say this. So awesome to see you on the stream. 3 years ago, AMB started working on one of the coolest looking Christmas animations on the channel, the Santa and the Boy. Yeah, and that thing was finished. Those 56 live streams were finished almost 3 years ago, actually. I animated it within a year, but it only actually took about, when I added up the time, it only took like, I don't know, 6 days to animate or something like that, if I added up all the hours that I worked on it, because I used that as a selling point to the course, because I took all 56 live streams, and now it's not a course, it's in the edutainment archive of the library. We'll talk about that a bit later. But yeah, it only took 6 days, 6 24-hour days or something like that to do it. But I did it little by little on these live streams throughout the year. I forgot how many years ago that was now, probably 3 years ago. And I got a great little film out of it. And it's something I share with everybody every Christmas, and it gets a lot of love on social media. So, Mage Burger is here. Merry Christmas to you. Butt shaped. I nearly busted. I wonder when I said butt shaped. I don't know. Fundamentals and gesture are important. Yes, they are. Merry Christmas to anyone who celebrates. Absolutely. Yes, I know that those guys both worked on The Lion King, but I'm trying to think at Andreas Deja level, Eric Goldberg level. Those guys have got their own level in their own right. I mean, but everybody knew about them once they got on YouTube or whatever. But I'm talking about, and at the time The Lion King was released, Andreas Deja, Glenn Keane, John Pomeroy, Eric Goldberg, Tony Fusilli, Duncan Marjorie Banks. All these people were the big names, right? There were more. Will Finn. Will Finn is another one. So I'm trying to put my mind back to that time. Who were the guys working, the supervisors working there, right? But I can't quite. I'm not that much of a fan of the movie, to be honest. So I don't know, like. But anyway, AMB, I bought myself a Christmas present. I got a new graphic tablet. It's huge, and I'm happy to have upgraded from my previous 13-inch. Awesome. I can tell you that it is so much better. I got back into drawing on my 15 field paper and A3 sketchpad, and then I'd spent nearly 20 years of my life working on a A4 Wacom Cintiq as a storyboard artist and as an animator. And I thought, I don't need a big Cintiq. But only after I got back into traditional drawing, I realized how much my drawing suffered and how much I was so I said I had got to buy a big Cintiq. And I bought the big Cintiq, and I'm not praising the Cintiq, I just am praising the range of motion. The difference between elbow drawing, wrist drawing, and finger drawing is a huge game changer to those of you who don't know. And I was a wrist and finger drawer for when I switched to digital. I used to work on 15 field paper when I worked in the animation as a hand-drawn animator. And then when I switched to digital with the storyboards, and we were doing small storyboard drawing, I primarily became a wrist and finger drawer, right? Whatever dirty jokes you want to come up with that. Wrist, finger, right? Knock yourself out. I know I'm leaving myself wide open to it, but to those of you who really want to be serious, for 10 years of my life, just that. Then I went back to my A3 sketchpad and I said, why can't I draw like I used to draw? Why can't I draw like I used to draw? I thought what I was doing on... This is it. The industry can be misleading. They all put you up like you're like... I became more successful as a storyboard artist than when I was an animator. And my name went around in studios and I was being hired. Tim Burton's people called me, asked me 3 times to work on Frankenweenie, but I was committed to something else. And then because of that, I went on to other things and other things and other things. And I never had to have a portfolio. I never had to call people. I was always being given work. And when you're in that mentality, you get delusional. And I believe I did get delusional. Because then when I got back to my sketch pad and I was drawing, I was thinking, I don't know how to do this anymore. Why does it look so amateur? Like, I was trained by a Disney supervisor and Iron Giant sequence director Richard Baisley, and I lived in his house with him. He trained me up, 15 field paper, and I was getting such pro grade level drawings. I did this great piece of animation with the genie, and then I said, I'm going to come back. And I was drawing in my sketch pad, and it felt like my drawings were like when I was 19, 20, like it's trying to be Disney, trying to be professional. I'm thinking, what the hell's happened to my drawing? I've been working in the industry for so long. That's when I realized something's got to change. And I started, even when I was creating the library, because I left the industry, I had a low budget because my income suddenly stopped. But I said, I'm going to leave this industry and I'm going to retrain myself in hand-drawn animation from the masters. I'm going to study the masters and I'm going to share. I've already got the knowledge to teach because I'm a pro. I've been in the industry for 20 years. I've been a supervising animator, a animation director, a character designer. I know how all these things work. But I'm going to build a library of training videos and I'm going to go through all the fundamentals. And as I go through the fundamentals, I'm going to make videos to train people, but I'm going to be retraining myself. I'm going to be undoing the mess that the animation industry created for me as a craftsman. As the standard in the industry kept getting lower and lower. It was happening 20 years ago. I could see this. So I said, I'm going to build this library. People are going to learn, and they're going to learn and be great, and I'm going to retrain myself as I'm doing it. So that's why I called it the Real Animator Training Library, because as you watch me, even if you're studying from my library, you'll see the way I was drawing back then and you'll see the way I'm drawing now. You'll see there's a huge difference. Like, it's not just you that's upping your game, it's me, because the things I'm teaching you and the things that you're following me doing really work. Because I know I've been through it. I've been trained by Disney people and Warner's people and Bluth people. So I'm like, okay, let's undo the mess. Like sometimes I'll get a little bit fat. I'll get a little bit unflexible. Running a business, it happens like that. But I know because I used to teach martial arts. I know exactly what to do to go and sort that out again. So I did it with my animation and I called it Real Animator Training. And as you guys have all been growing, hopefully you'll see what's happening to me, and you will know that if you stick to the training that I'm giving you, it's going to happen to you. Providing you don't quit on yourselves and you just don't buy into what I'm saying and you just want to run around on a hamster wheel to nowhere looking for the next quick fix. Yeah, the range is incredible. Yeah, I've been doubting you big time at work. I even Googled you on the computer, even though we aren't allowed to use computer for something at work. Thank you. Listen, I'm so happy that you've got a bigger tablet because, you're freer to explore your drawing. But I will say to one thing, that when you're just starting out and drawing, you don't have to be a great draftsman. Wrist and finger drawing is good enough just to learn bouncing balls and flour sacks. Okay? But once you want to start working on your drawing, you got your small sketch pad for wrist and finger, which is good to work things out, sketch. But when you want to really, really get good line and understand how to move your hand, then you need that elbow, right? You need that elbow room. And then you can apply the same thing, like I'm using elbow. It's almost like I will use, if I'm going to do a block like this, I can just use my arm, or I can use my hip. My hip will set me up to the next move. It's similarly, I always use the example, I can use my arm. Now listen, if I use my hip, right, we get a snap. So it's the same. If you understand that principle when you're drawing, right, you can then say, right, my wrist is going to now move like my elbow. So you won't just keep doing like this, right? You move your wrist. You're still moving it from your elbow, but your energy is in your wrist. And you've got that muscle connection. So my elbow is dead straight. And actually I'm elbow drawing, but I'm channeling my wrist. I'm putting the weight of my hand on the screen and I'm channeling my wrist. So then you can change and tense the muscle in your elbow and just use your wrist. And then you can do the same thing. You can channel your wrist and think about your finger connection. And then you can start working with your fingers. And that's how you can really really start to exponentially grow with your drawing. What is an in-between frames in animation? What's the main role of animation? That's what this stream's about. This stream is staying up, so maybe rewatch it instead of watching some 20-year-old trying to tell you, because they think they know but they don't. Right, so I've been talking about extremes, keys and breakdowns. If you keep watching, I'll still keep talking about them, and in-betweens come last, right? So let us continue with the drawing now. We've had a nice little chat. So first off, as the person asked, I'm using a system called pose-to-pose animation. And I'm not thinking about in-betweens. In-betweens are not important. And the drawings that go between these poses are not even going to be in-betweens, because what goes between hair and hair is something very important, right? It could be considered an in-between because there is no in-between between hair and hair. There is a breakdown, right? There is a breakdown between hair and hair. From when I've been slowing down, there is no in-between, right? Because of the in-between is a very, very basic thing, and what happens between hair and hair is not so basic, right? Some people might consider it an in-between, but that's why in-betweener jobs became, when they started handing out in-between jobs to everybody, animation started looking shit, right? Because there's a difference between a breakdown and an in-between. But most people, a lot of people who consider themselves to be animators really just don't know. And that's why the standard started going bad, because they are hiring people to in-between their bad keying or their bad extremes. And the in-betweener really has not got the ability to think like an animator. That's why back only in the Disney that they used to have this thing called junior animator, right? People like Glenn Keane, was a junior animator in the 1970s and 60s. On The Rescuers, he was an animator, but before he'd be the junior, right? Junior to the 9 Old Men. Now, he was probably extremely capable even back then, but he was not considered a full-fledged animator. But nowadays, everybody and their grandmother is an animator, which is why we've got, a lot of people crying in their sleep over AI, right? But An in-betweener simply draws in between lines, right? They have to have a concept of solid drawing, but to know how to draw shapes and how to manipulate the shapes and change the shapes and understand arcing, timing, slowing in and slowing out, and the laws, to really know that well, then you can draw a good breakdown. That's what an assistant animator does. An assistant animator or a junior animator would draw the breakdown. Now, I can't speak for the United States, though I've worked on American projects. I've always done it in the UK. So, but in the UK, it was a horrible system, which is why so much 2D is so shit over there. There was basically, they would call people assisting. So people who assisted would do the cleanup, would do the in-between. And like many of the animators were doing this horrible Placey Tracy style of animation, and they would say that those were key drawings, and then they would expect the in-betweener to do the Placey Tracy style. This is why symbol and flash animation became so widely used, because people became used to not really knowing how to break down their animation, not really knowing how to really enrich and embellish arcs, and they basically ended up with this world where assistants were just doing exactly what the animators were doing. They understood the basic thing of a half and a third spacing, but they really had no concept of how to draw a breakdown, how to make the arc interesting and appealing. Just no concept. This is stretched too much. I've got to lower this. This should come here. So in between simply is turn on your light box and in between the lines, slow in and slow out, in between, simple things, right? Breakdown, you really have to understand the arc you're making. You can make or break an animation with breakdowns. And this is why straight to video sequels are so bad compared to the features. But the average Joe public doesn't know this. Now, forgive me, I've got to really look for this because I can't see. I really can't see it, so I'm going to have to use that. It's brown, very dark brown, but the background is very black. And there's a glare from the LED light above my monitor, which is making it. So I'm going to have to just say, okay, the SAC is doing that. All right. So what you're seeing me doing here, even though I'm copying somebody else's drawing right now, right? I'm maintaining volume and I'm maintaining, like, see, I'm going here, I'm understanding the way this drawing has appeal, right? This arm is linked to this shape here, like this, right? So a lot of assistants and who call themselves assistant animators today just don't know all this. So they will just create an in-between based on what's the space between the hand and the head, and is it on a half, or is it halfway, is it 1/3 of the way, and they will do that. But their drawing skill, their knowledge of shapes and things isn't good, so they'll simply place and trace the drawing and get this flat symbol sliding effect to their animation, which is why it looks so bad and why it lacks, especially, you know, sometimes in something like anime or more humanoid, more realistic looking animation, you can do that, and it actually helps keep things solid. It keeps it dead, and you know that it's just a sliding drawing. But again, here I'm out, right? This should be, see, mistake I made here was the distance between here, and why I'm rubbing that out is because the drawing lacks appeal. So all of the things I'm telling you about what an assistant knows and an assistant does, I'm kind of correcting myself, because if it's acceptable, the mistake I made, then I would keep it. But that's what I consider an unacceptable mistake. His arm felt too long, right? It's going to go round like this, right? So you get a lot of people worrying about solid drawing and keeping things solid, but they literally have no clue on the arc and all that. So they just, how hard is it to just slide a head around and trace it, right? It's not that hard at all. But that's what they do. They literally figure out where they want to put their drawing and they trace the previous drawing. And that's why we have really bad animators today, really bad cartoon animation. Even when they hand draw it, people think, oh, well, it's hand drawn. But who's doing the hand drawn stuff? What do they really know? Just because they did that, just because they hand drew it, doesn't mean they know any better than the guy pulling the rig or symbol around, right? So it's really, really it's really, really important to understand and acknowledge. This beard is going to come here like this. These things. Arguably, I should have started with the head, but I wanted to get the body in place because now everything is leaning this way. Even his head is tending to do this. This is why I've made this mark here. These characters are, they're simple, but they're deceptively hard, right? Mickey especially, right? I see big time pros who've directed Disney movies draw Mickey on their Instagram, and there's something off about it, right? And many times I try to draw Mickey and there's something off about it. So these characters are deceptively hard, right? Donald is easier than Mickey, right? In my opinion. Like he looks better. He looks like a more complex cartoon character, but Mickey, getting the balance right of Mickey's facial features in that big round circle is difficult stuff. For me, anyway. Right. So here we see him come up like this. I feel that it's a little bit too big, but because I'm proportionately accurate, I can do that, right? That feels more like the arc, because I'm going over my rough, and my rough is a little bit big. Okay, so now on to the next one. So I'm going to watch the placement of the head. The head comes down. Right, so the head comes straight down. So my head should be about here. Right. That's what we need to think about. Right. That's where we are. So I'm gonna sort this out now so I don't have the problem. You see why extreme frames are so important to keeping things solid, right? Because I want to sort, because if you don't have a framework and you just keep drawing one frame at a time, you're going to notice how I love this kind of taper on the leg to emphasize the weight going to the ground. Look how that tapers out. So the choice of shape there is great. Right, so this is helping me really build a decent framework. I mean, they use the word frames for animation because, like, it's not just a number. The framework is the system in how the hierarchy of which we draw in to manage how his toes are curling over. So we're going to play with the perspective of that foot a little bit too big. I'm going to have it like that. So we have something like this. Now the way he draws his foot is interesting. Like, we see a bit of the back and we then curl up like this, and look at the squash and stretch, but also follow through, overlap and drag on the foot, right? So it's almost like it's curling back on itself, right? Nice shape going on here. Now I'm going to see where that is in accordance to this. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this down a little bit so we feel the weight coming down a bit more, right? Because the whole thing is kind of in perspective like this, right? So when this foot comes down, this foot's going to be there, right? So that's the important thing also with this drawing. Notice his feet, right? Many people would do this, right? Or have them like flat, right? We don't want that. So it's important to understand where this foot's going to go as we're doing this animation. So we're going to have this come around here like that. Now I'm going to deal with the head. I'm going to go draw in the guy's head. Okay. So his head is basically a circle. I know the construction, and there's the midline, right? And on the midline will sit his bill, right? Like this. And he's smiling big time here. So I gotta watch what's happening to the shape of this, right? This mouth is moving up a bit. And it comes very flat. Now this is where many people will get Donald wrong. They'll want to put more at the space here, including me, but there's very little, right? It just comes flat like that, right? And this comes out, down. I'll come and look at the chat in a minute here. You can see how I'm really slowing down here, because one of the things to do when you're studying like this is to train your hand-eye coordination as well, right? So while the first pass, when I did in yellow, what you saw, the roughing, was my animation pass, right? And I'm still making sure that I animate, and I'm animating solid. But I'm also using this as an opportunity to work my drawing and learn this fellow's shape choices, right? The whole point now we've got, I believe there's a nice little crease in the hat there like this, as it's gone this way. And we've got some nice, look at as the head is going down, this hat bobble is going up. So there's always the contrast. Just like the quadruped walks and all that kind of stuff, as the front legs and arms go down, the rear legs go up, sort of thing, vice versa. So this kind of mentality is something that it's just follow through, overlap, follow through like action. And it's also what we call the law of, which is also not really a primary like one of the 12 laws, because it's essentially just follow through, overlap and drag. But it is because it's following through in the movement, right? And it's just delayed action. But we can call it opposing action. So when you have one thing going one way, you have the other thing going the other way. And we get an opposition to the action. So this arm is coming bending. So really it's going to be doing this, right? But we're just going to bring that here. And see how the hand shapes all fit inside this nice silhouette like that. Right, and then we have this here and a bit of the wrist coming in here like this. Now the bag, the ever difficult bag. Okay, so I can just about see this, right? Oh goodness, this is a struggle to see in the dark. So it's completely underneath his arm like this. Interesting, right? It's under his arm. It's just, so this is something that I wouldn't necessarily have done. So he's really delaying the bag. Put that in there like that. Right. Okay, so we have got bum 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 bum. There we go. Let's just check that with that. So I'm checking my sizing. Does that look like the same? Like this was the drawing here. Let me just take this here, right? So this is what I would do, right? I will put this here and I will go paste that in there, right? Yeah, that feels like it's the same size and we're on the same plane, right? And he's bending down here and he's kind of in the air there. So you see, this is how we check the solidity. As we are now working with the law of solid drawing. Let's see what's going on in the chat. For a 10-minute animation, they would spend thousands and thousands of sheets of paper to draw each frame, each in between. Well, yeah, I mean, it's great. Listen, if I could just do everything on paper, and I could raise the money to make my own feature and do it all on paper, I would do it all on paper, because it's so much better. And believe it or not, it might be quicker to color it all in the computer and to film it and put it into edit. So it is faster, but I animate even faster. People think I'm fast on the machine. I animate even faster on paper, because when I draw on paper, it's 10,000 times easier and better. I feel that I can do everything in the machine, but then when I sit down and I hold a real pencil and I draw with the paper, man, suddenly I remember, like, oh, this is how it should be. Right, anyway, yes, absolutely, Cameron. You're right, as you well know. Right, let's now continue. How are we doing for time? We are 1 hour, 1.5 hours in. Okay, not bad. Now we're doing this drawing, I believe. So we're dropping further down. So I'm going to turn off the next panel because all I'm seeing is scribble. So this is interesting because we've got the bend of the knee here, right? So this is a good squash and stretch to do on the guy's leg. Let's see how this is looking on the screen. It's a bit faint. Bear with me. Let's just look and put this on. Yeah, that's showing up on the screen. Okay, all good. Because my pencil is very thin, my animated. Right, so now we're going to go, this is interesting, right? So I haven't gone deep enough. So I'm going to go here like this. And we're going to, this squash and stretch of the foot throws me, right? So I'm learning, I'm really learning here, right? So and this isn't right. Because where his heel comes up here, his line comes in here, and we're going to go really deep into that foot. So the foot for me is the real thing I'm learning about here, right? That's how his foot squashes and stretches. Wow, that's interesting, right? So I'm then going to bring that body in down here like that, right? So this is one of my big takeaways, this webbed foot squash and stretch of Donald, right? Now that sack is coming over this foot, right? So this is right up here, over here like this. And we've got the bottom of the foot here like that. There we go. So it's right up here like this. And the bag comes here. Excuse me, there's an awful beeping coming outside. I hope it's nothing to do with... No, everything's relatively safe in my neighborhood. Right, so this is here like that. Then we have... This is really, really interesting. It looks so strange to me, and you can tell that I'm wrestling in my mind with like, what's going on here, right? You know, which is good. When that happens, learning happens, right? This is hopefully, when you study from my library, this is kind of like the feeling I want you guys to get. I don't want you to just mindlessly copy the videos, right? They're not made in that way. Right, so then this comes down like this. So now I'm back in my comfort zone, right? So the beard is going to be about here. Like this. Now we've got this huge open mouth, right? So I'm going to find the tip of the mouth. Then I'm going to work out the construction of the head, because I don't draw cartoons like this, and I'm not comfortable to just, if I could just copy it, but then what would I have learned, right? So let's work this out together. Donald's head is, first I'm going to kind of put my hand here so I can get the head placement kind of right. Donald's head is a round circle, right, like this. Now it's angled this way. The center line, I believe, is going to be here. So we've got his eye here and his eyebrow here, right? So that's his head angled up, and there's a bit of his hair here, right? So the round circle is more like that, right? At that particular angle. His other eye is here, right? So now we have the bit where the bill is. Now it's this open mouth shape is huge, right? So we're going to have that come up, and that's going to be in a straight line with where it comes in here like this, right? So then this comes around, right? So you see, compared to when you see me doing my other live streams where I'm rocket fast, right? Because it's my drawing, right? I could very easily just fudge this and say this is this and make this illusion that I'm being fast, right? And I'm so good. But I want you guys to see that real learning takes focus and concentration. And you don't try to be something you're not. Don't try to pretend, or if you don't understand something, slow down. Like, I don't understand this mouth shape. I've been doing this for a long time, but I don't draw these kind of characters all the time. So this mouth shape is something new to me. So I'm slowing down, and I'm taking the time to process it, to build the brain cells, to understand, okay, that's the mouth shape. And as I've tried to understand that, my proportions are a little bit out, right? This should be higher, the body should be higher, but I'm going to keep it, right? I have this thing is a bit wrong, right? But it's okay. Because that's what happens when you learn. I either try to be 100% accurate with my drawing and I screw up on the animation, or I learn the animation and say, okay, well, I'm going to also learn the drawing, but that's where we're going to start getting a few inconsistencies, where my drawing and that drawing which I'm referring to are going to not be 100% the same, because I'm going to get a few things wrong as I'm trying to work things out, and that's okay. So you people that are following my training library videos, this is exactly what's happening here, right? So now this sack is really throwing me, because it's still keeping this position underneath his arm, right? It's still like this kind of thing. You see, here I'm using I was talking about wrist drawing and finger drawing, and here, as I'm really trying to understand, I'm not so bold and confident to start moving with my elbow and just going, right? Because I'm trying to be in control, so I can sense my subconscious my conscious mind is inhibiting my subconscious mind from wanting to get it right, because I know I'm on a live stream, and I'm on a live stream with a mentality of an instructor, but I'm trying to learn something myself here, but I don't want it to go completely pear-shaped. So my conscious mind is inhibiting my subconscious mind from just exploring and getting those shapes, which is why I'm moving from not using my elbow drawing, I'm using my finger drawing and trying to be in control. Because the more you draw with your fingers, the more you think you have control over something, but you're actually limiting yourself. So you need to have those controlled finger drawing for detailing, but not for this blocking stage, right? This overall right thing. Okay, so there we are. I'm happy with that. That's good. The sack that he's holding is really delayed along there. Hey, Silver Sun is online. When working for someone, how do you tell them that what they're doing isn't working, or that they need to do things in a different way without being rude or insensitive? I don't know. I mean, people even today consider me to be rude and insensitive. I mean, but we're living in very fragile, I believe in very fragile times. People are just too fragile now. But I mean, even back in the day, I had a reputation for having strong opinions, just simply because they were my opinions and they weren't their opinions. So by default, they were strong opinions, you know. So take from that what you will. The thing is my experience when I was in the industry is I remember, now I'm going to tell you a funny story. I was never hired again by one man because I said, I was really pissed off with what he was doing. So this isn't the way to do it, Silver Sun, but it's a fun story. And I basically said to him, you're making me ruin my work. I will only change it if you tell me I'm paying you. He says, I'm paying you. I said, yeah, you're paying me to do shit. And I will only do it if you say I'm paying you to do shit. And that guy knew that I was like one of the only people that were available at the time. And he said, I'm paying you to do shit. Just do it. Right? It was quite heated. People had red faces. I said, thank you. I will go and proceed to do shit. And then I did the work. I got my money. And I never heard from that person again. Whenever we'd go to animation networking meetings, when the rare occasion where my friend dragged me to them because I hated going to them. I don't drink, I don't enjoy pubs and bars. I'd stand there and that guy would see me from the side of his eye. Thank you, Dylan. Dylan has given me a donation of 10 Great British Pounds. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Dylan. Thank you. So basically, whenever we'd be drinking or looking or nibbling or talking, he would see me, I would see him. We wouldn't even nod our heads at each other. Just a lot of ego, a lot of attitude. But I could have done things better. But I stand by what I was. My attitude, because that attitude I carry in my work today. I want to give it the best, but the flip side is it's not my project, and now I'm working on my projects. Now I have the say so, right? I was hired to work on somebody else's project. I'm not hired. This is the reality. What artists, especially these delusional people crying over AI, they've now realized they're nothing. You're just there to shut up and draw. In their case, shut up and move the shape around. Now we've got a computer that can move the shape around. We don't need you, right? But back in our case, it was shut up and draw. So the thing is there's a lot of human pleasantries and tact of, it would be nice to have your input. They don't want your input. You're hired to just animate. And if the person's a strong animator themselves and they know that you're a strong animator, they will be very happy to have your input. They know they're bringing you on to enrich their project. But if they are not a strong animator, or if they are out of their depth, they don't want to lose control and they want to be in charge, and they've already got a lot of stress on their mind and they just want to get it right. They don't need somebody coming along to rock the boat and tell them this isn't right. They've got it all worked out, and they've so many other things they've got to deal with, stress they've got to deal with as being in charge of a project. Having one guy coming and telling them this is all shit and I wouldn't, or even in a nice way, this isn't quite the way they don't want to know. They just want you to do your job, take your money and fuck off. That's quite frankly the professional world of the business, depending on who you're working with. But in a lot of cases, especially in the stuff where they're depending on AI, they just want you. That's why they like AI so much. They just want you to churn it out. They don't care, right? They just want monkeys to masturbate and churn out shit, right? I'm sorry, I'm deliberately using funny, foul language because that's how I feel about a lot of people in the animation industry. Overrated, overpaid, talentless fucks who just want, who are just wanting to be in charge and are basically, stressed because they're not cut out for the position and they've got to mentally cope. And the last thing they need is for anybody to rock the boat. So they'll basically come and they'll say to you, you'll say to them, this is what I've done also, Silver Sun. I've given you my extreme example, which was not the way to go about it. I hold by my attitude, but it was not the way to go about it. But I would say to them, look, I think it would be better if the character did this. Or I think the mood lighting here is not really consistent with such and such. I would tell them, and then they would say that's interesting, but it's such and such and such and such. And they would basically want to give their reasoning as to why I'm wrong. Okay, go away. So towards the end of my career, when I was already tired of the industry and I was already secretly doing my YouTube in the back and testing out products and seeing if I can sell stuff online, I already knew that I was going to leave the industry. And I've got nothing against this guy. I always tell this story, but I've got nothing against the guy. I truly don't. He was a lovely guy and I wish him the best, and he did nothing wrong, but I always give this story as an example. There's an animation studio. Some of you can still see the advert. There's a Coca-Cola where a balloon is like, it's based on Up. Like there's a balloon flying through the different levels of a New York apartment. And it says open happiness was the new phrase, right? And there was a company called Nexus, which is a big story commercial house in the UK. One of the last studios that I did work for before I just said I've had enough. And it wasn't Nexus's fault. Nexus was lovely, beautiful people. They really respected me. They really, until a few years ago, they still would ask me to come and storyboard. But now I think I've just been out of it for too long and nobody's out of sight, out of mind. So the thing is, I went to meet them on that job for the first time. I went, and as I sat down to do my job for Nexus, waiting for the people who had employed, there were so many different directors, so many different ads going on. The people who hired me I had to sit and wait in a room. I saw a young 20-something. Now, I was probably in my late 30s at the time, I would say. Probably in my late 30s. 39, 38, something like that. So that's a long time ago. I mean, I'm in my late 40s now. So it's actually, time flies. So basically, he was very sweet and very friendly. He says, "Hello, I'm such and such." And I said, "I'm such and such. And what are you here for?" "I'm here to storyboard on a commercial. I'm here to start my new position as a director." I said, "Okay. I just need to say this. Thank you to my other, to the man, the guy who was always, yeah, thank you. I don't know if he minds if his name is disclosed, but he knows who he is. I also got another donation. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So, and happy Christmas to you, my friend. Thank you for the support all year round. Thank you. For really, truly, thank you. So, I basically thought to myself, director at 20 something, okay, so good. But I said, okay, so he says, yeah, I've won a few festivals. I've won a few festivals and now I've got my chance to direct. Now, part of me felt, that's amazing. Who doesn't deserve that? You know, he's won a few festivals, a 20 something, starting out, working in the industry. But what does he really know about it? What does he really know? What experience has he really got? Experience does come into play. You can have a lot of raw talent, but experience does come into play. But I didn't take it back. I wasn't bitter. I was happy for him, but I thought to myself, there are many people like me who are extremely experienced. I've done my fair share of animation supervision. I've been an animation director, was an animation director for Lego. But I'm thinking there's so many people with tons of experience and tons of ability who can really make these projects amazing. But they don't want that. They're hiring youngsters because the producers can push them around a lot easier. They know the youngster is so happy to be in that role, to get that chance. They play to the ego. You've won festivals. Winning festivals puts him as a kind of, if you're a producer, you're a seller. You're selling projects. I've worked with producers, so I know the game. When you create a budget for a movie, you say, I will have this award-winning director. They pay that director to use their name, and the director doesn't even direct it half the chance. Some other young punk just does it while he sits back and gets the director's credit because they want to use that name. So they say, oh, we've got a festival winning, we've got an up-and-coming talent, he's directing, so they go to the brand, I don't know if it's Coca-Cola or whoever, they go, this and this, he's really hot in the UK right now, he won the Edinburgh Festival, he's going to be the one to direct. And then they know that that person is really eager to make it big, just like all of us are, and they deserve that right. So it's important that we get this across, that I'm not coming across as somebody bitter or moaning or complaining. I'm just telling you the way things work, right? The way this industry works. They know the guy is going to be a pushover when they tell him that this is what we want. So he feels he's directing. He's given enough rope to feel like he's in charge. And he's telling all these seasoned 50-somethings, 40-somethings, what they should be and shouldn't be doing. And those 50-somethings, 40-somethings try to help sometimes. Now, this wasn't the case with that guy. I never worked with that guy. As I said, he did nothing wrong. But we were talking about this many times. We experienced older ones will tell the director or the person, look, man, hey, you know, it might be better if you did it like this. I'm the director. And you're going to do it this way, you're going to do it that way. Right? are thriving off that power that they've been given without knowing they're a puppet to the producer and the money men who are just going to say, let's just get this fool to get all this talent in the room who are begging for money because they're just jobbing artists who have got into the habitual thing of doing other people's work, and they don't want to direct. They don't know how to direct anyway. They're just basically doing that. This guy, he's the director, he's playing that role, let's just put him in that role. And so what happens is ego. But when you get a seasoned director, somebody who really knows what they're doing, or you could get a young talent who respects and understands where he is, and in order to get better he needs to learn from the people he's working with, who would say, you know what, you know better, this is my idea, this is my feeling, please get that across. But if you can enrich that with your experience, then do it. That sounds good to me. But too often, Silver Sun, you're going to work with people who just don't want to know. And there's multiple reasons why. Maybe they may agree with you, but they got the money men on down their back, they got 101 other problems, and it ain't happening, right? They just want it done. They don't care if it's done exceptionally well. They just want it to an acceptable level so they can get through the job, get through the project successfully. And that's what being a team player is. And one of the reasons why the industry was perhaps never the best place for me is as I was never much of a team player. I used to be an extremely good basketball player in what you guys call high school, but I would always end up causing the team to lose because I wanted to dribble and do all the tricks and take a three-pointer instead of pass it. I realized basketball wasn't for me. I was always into martial arts, but I took it more seriously when I realized that basketball wasn't for me. And I went and did something where I could just command my whole, just me, right? And then also getting my ass kicked a few times taught me how to be a better team player. But the thing is if you're not working for somebody in the industry and you're working on a project with somebody and it's just a collaboration, then just tell them, I think it's going to be better like this. And if they don't want to know and they don't want to collaborate, then don't collaborate. Don't bring any bad energy. Don't waste your time on a commitment to something what's giving you bad energy, right? Yeah, I mean, I don't know if, Kim J, I agree 100%, but unfortunately, what is rude? Like, what I'm talking about could be considered rude today, but I don't consider it to be rude, right? So I guess if you're going to call it rude, I believe there's a gentleman up there. No, I'm supposed to be looking out for somebody, so apologies if I keep turning my head. But yeah, so I think it's important. This is again why I've developed the real animator training system, if you want to call it the rude animator training system. I always say you got to get real. You know, it's not about what it is in front of other people. You could probably run rings around me, Dylan Draws. I mean, I think you're based in the States. I was a UK guy. I used to watch documentaries about Michael Jordan. What is it? Come Fly With Me. And the music in there, I think they would use Yanni. So even like when I was like 13 or 12, I knew what Yanni was. And I was never into mainstream. I would listen. I would put my little tape recorder next to the video and just tape the music and hear that on my Walkman because I didn't know what it was or where I could buy it from. Those were the days. All right, now back to drawing Donald Duck. Okay, right. So it's awesome. I'm having this is a fun Christmas stream. We're all getting, having a bit of chit chat, question and answers, fun stuff. Right, now we're on to the next frame, which is, it's almost like a Second World War salute, this. pose, but there we go. So he's going to, I'm not sure this working from the ground up is the best way to go, but let me just check my stream in case it's not my face. You're not watching my face talking. Right, there we go. That happens sometimes. Right. But I'm going to do that. And I'm going to make sure that the other foot is in line. So I'm going to draw this foot in anyway so I can get the pose right. Because it was all feeling a little bit off balance. So I can't see what his body's actually doing. Because the bag drops down. And that's interesting, the bag movement. I wouldn't have done that, so it's good to know, because as I said, I'm here to learn as well. And this is what I believe a great artist, or even a really experienced, highly experienced artist should do. When people say they've got artist block and they don't know what to draw, they don't know what to do, study. Don't have the ego or the arrogance to think that you know it all, right? So take something that you admire by somebody else and spend the day breaking it down, making notes about it, and studying. Now I'm just going to see what's happening to this guy's head. Bum, 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 bum. Okay, so the head is coming. The head is straightening up like this. So let's get where the head is. There we go. So let's get this head. Let's do a Donald Duck head construction. So we have the eye in here, the other eye here. So these eyes are coming like this at an angle, right? They're getting bigger to give it a sense of depth, right? Then we've got the beak. So his beak is, the bill is always a lot harder than it looks, right? Because I draw the round circle, and I always find that my circle when I do these classic cartoon characters is way too big, right? And then we have this. See, now what I've got here, the beard, because I've got the beard, because I've drawn, going by my yellow drawing, this is where my proportions are slightly out. So I can get away with doing this because my proportions of the ratio on my head are bigger. But if you are not used to drawing things in ratio, then you can scale it up and down as much as you like with the software as a crutch. But you're going to find that you're basically going to be off. The eyes are going to be separating and sliding. The width of the head, the width of the bill is going to be wrong. So you got to get the ratio right if you want to benefit from software shortcuts like that. And how do you do that? Is you simply redraw. You get used to drawing. You get better at drawing. So when you do things like that, there we go. Your hand-eye coordination, your ability to draw things more proportionally accurate is intact. Right? A lot of people want to use the tools that have been designed for artists who have the ability, right? But this is the problem of the digital age, right? A lot of people are learning to draw, but they're using tools that were not designed for them, right? You're using tools that were not designed for you because you haven't developed that skill set. You haven't developed the skill set to be able to draw things proportionately accurate, right? So even as I'm looking at this, I'm off, right? Which is the way it should be, because I'm working relatively fast and just settling for what I've got. But it's enough. It's enough for me to learn and understand what I'm doing, you see, and get the hand somewhat to size, right? We're gonna come here. Now this bag drops right down here over all this leg, completely concealing everything, right? Like that. So before I do that, I'm gonna get the pom-pom of the hat. We're gonna add in the breakdowns and some of the other keys afterwards. Right. There we go. So he's landed there. Let me just look at what's happening with that leg there, because that looks odd to me. Okay, I see. The reason that this is, I picked the wrong pose, actually. So I thought this was the pose that that I was referring to, but I picked the wrong one. So that's all right. I'll settle it for the last actually no, I picked the right one. I see what I did here. So this was when I said I drew a key instead of an extreme, right? So it comes there like that. Not bad, not bad. It's coming together. So it's pretty solid, right? Let me see, he's down there like that. I can now see why that bag works like that. The bag is not over the top, right? The bag, we're not trying to do, and the bag has got weight to it, and it's, now I understand, you see. And the bag is coming forward, so it's going under his arm, right? And actually the weight of the swing is bringing the bag forward, and then as he releases his arm, the bag wants to swing back this way, but he's moving down, right? So this is subtle follow through and overlap dependent on the weight of what's in the object. And that's why that works, right? Excellent. Excellent. So here we can really see how the weight of an object is being conveyed in the animation. So this is superb. This is superb. I've just seen Michael's message. I will read that later. So now we're on this pose, right? So let's just see. So he's gonna lean back. I see what happened. So I said he was off balance, but now as I'm slowing down and looking in relation to the previous, I will fix this drawing that I did here to make sure that he's not off balance. I was wondering, right, so we're gonna stretch that there like that. So then this stays here, right? And we don't really see what's going on with this foot, but I'm just gonna put it in there like that for the time being, but this body stays down here and he leans back. I had him too tall, and his head comes here, so he's very much on balance. Eyes are this shape. Mouth is open. So here's where this whole solid drawing thing comes in. And when I make this, see now here is his chest is Actually, the head is off because his chest is... This is what threw me about the balance. His arm is out like this. So we got some reverse curve with the arm there. Right, so what threw me about that is the arm and the chest. We can see this arm, and his beard is way back here. Right, so they're really pushing what's going on. So his shoulder, what's going in his shoulder is down here. Interesting stuff. Really interesting stuff. So then this I really want to get that. I'm going to slow down even more here because I want to understand this final pose. It's almost like he might have done this final pose. He might have taken from a story sketch and embellished it and started with this pose. Because in those days, the extremes would have been the first pose and the last pose, right? So I wonder, like, the arm is completely straight like that. Yeah, we get the weight in the sack now. It's all making sense. The heavy weight. So this really emphasizing the weight of the bag that he's holding, which I can barely see, but only through animating and moving it am I able to understand what the animator's intention was. Yeah, we really feel the weight of that. That's good. So this. So hopefully you can see that, you know, anybody can get a schooling, right? And that's exactly what I'm getting right here. Because I was saying, oh, I wouldn't do it like that. I don't agree with it, right? But I go to schooling. It works, and it's better than what I was thinking I was going to do better, right? So that's why I love doing this stuff. I go to school myself from the old masters, right? Because people don't animate like this. People even in the 90s don't animate like this. They don't have this mentality. The 90s, as good as though it was still very much industry, especially movies like The Lion King and those things. They used to make one film a year, and the film they were making was Pocahontas. They said, let's try and make another film, a B one. Right? They just produced more factory style work. But back in these days, when these guys animated these there was just a Walt Disney Studios, and they just animated in the 40s and 50s. You had your A-listers, and then you had the people that did the shorts. Now sometimes those guys would do shorts as well, but I don't think I read any of those names on this short. But these guys, they were very good at their cartoon animation, and they really, you know, they really know their stuff. So it's time for me to not just focus on the big names of yesteryear, but to look at some of the unsung heroes and say, you know what, I can learn something from this guy. I feel my cartooning is not as strong as it could be, so I could learn something from this guy. What I've just seen there is great cartooning. Now this example that I'm choosing is not the best, but it's I had to look for something quickly that was festive, and I thought I'd go to Chuck Jones, but I found nothing that I felt really I could look at and go, wow, I can really personally. So I probably can learn from that, as I was saying earlier, but you've got to kind of have a standard, and that standard can only really be understood when you stop bullshitting yourself and you really know animation law. You really know what good animation is, and you're not just calling something good because you're naive and you like the way it looks. You know, you're really schooled in that subject, you're really experienced in that craft, and you know what a good craft is, you know. What something is, whether you like it or not, you know, yeah, that's good. Right, so I've got this here, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly do a check. So I'm going to, before I want to tidy this particular drawing up a bit more. I'm going to go to this drawing, which is the drawing we started with, and I'm going to paste that in there. That feels like it's almost round about the same. That's how we keep our volumes, right? We always check our first and our last drawing. So I'm going to give this one more shot because it'll make a nice thumbnail, right? Let me just increase the size of the pen a little bit. Let me see if there's an interesting point in the chat I can talk to while I make this drawing. Mike Davies just wanted to wish you and your family fantastic Christmas, and truly thank you for all the help this year. Your courses have made dreams possible. Thank you. My PC blew up due to bad electrician wiring in my home and won't be fixed until the 27th, but I'm looking forward to a marathon catch-up of your live streams for once, and for now I'm back to paper. Good. Paper is the way to be. Awesome. Thank you, Mike. It's not industry work yet. I'm just trying to help him finish his project. I don't know him personally, but I can empathize with his goals and want it to be a good job for him. Yeah, well then just suggest. Just suggest is all you can do. And those suggestions, if they're taken in good faith, then it'll be good. But if he doesn't want to listen, then don't bother arguing, because believe me, Silver Sun, it will just affect your own mentality and your own work, because you've chosen to, your time is the most valuable thing. Your time is what makes money. Your time is what generates love for your family and your friends. Your time is your energy. Whatever you put in, you get out, right? So if you are giving your time to somebody, that's a good thing. You know, to willfully give without regard for reception is absolutely an amazing thing. But if what you are giving is not necessarily taken with good energy, and it returns bad energy to you, that will affect the things, the decisions that you decide to take when it comes to your personal work, right? And your personal demeanor around people, right? Friends, family, loved ones, right? It affects you. So just, be mindful. Which is one of the reasons why to be honest, I don't have to completely quit the industry. I can run ads on my Real Animator training library and still receive members for it while doing jobs, if I was so inclined. But I've realized that the kind of, I don't watch, like, people talk about all this Blue Eyes Samurai and all these kind of things. The kind of things that are being made, or arcane, just no interest to me. In my mind, they look bullshit, right? I don't care how many people say it's the best thing ever. To my eye, to my mind, it's all bullshit. I don't look at that and say, I wish I was a part of that. Into the Spider-Verse and all this. Wow, wouldn't I want to be a part of that? I look at it and say, oh, thank God. And the current kind of message or agenda being pushed in today's movies may resonate with some. And it's not for me to tell them, to tell people not to make stuff pushing that message, because everybody has a right to enjoy what they want. So I'm not going to tell them don't make that and it's all shit, but I don't enjoy that. I don't resonate with that message being pushed today. It doesn't, it feels very engineered, like I'm trying to force my idea onto somebody that, and I'm trying to do it by taking things that they love and just changing it, right? That's not the way to win hearts and minds, according to me, right? You want to win hearts and minds, go ahead, win hearts and minds. That's a good, noble cause. But the last thing I'd want to do is take a project that was beloved by somebody and butcher it. When I don't even care about it enough, right? So I look at all this, and I don't feel that I want to be part of it. It just brings bad vibes to me, brings bad energy to me, and makes me think to myself, well, gonna make this guy a little bit bigger there. That's better. Brings bad energy to me, and I don't want to put that energy towards my own projects, right? I don't want to take that energy. And when I was in the industry, like what I'm doing now, I could have done all these short films, all these ideas you now see me pushing out there, trying, like Little Red and the Alpha Man and all these things, Groundhopper. I could have been doing that 10, 15 years ago, right? But one of the main reasons why I didn't was I was too busy giving my energy to the industry, too busy being part of somebody else's project. And a lot of those projects I had no interest in. I just wanted to draw because I loved drawing. And I thought that that was the only way that I could make money, and that I wouldn't have to do something that I would rather jump off a building doing, because I don't think I can do anything other than draw. I wouldn't even want to be a martial arts instructor or a competitor, even though I like martial arts. I wouldn't even want to do that. I just want to draw cartoons. I love it. So that was why I was doing what I was doing for the animation industry. But it came a point when it was mainly doing Lego storyboards and Lego characters that I was feeling so depressed about the quality of my drawings. Because for a couple of years you're just drawing Lego bricks. What do you think is going to happen to your ability to draw and animate Disney-esque style characters? Then it got to the point where I thought, well, you know what? I'm kind of in a pretty okay place to try something now. So I decided to try social media and becoming a full-time real artist that basically, it's your drawings, it's your call. You're not relying on the producers, but I'm making the decisions of what I'm serving my audience. And it's scary, but at the same time, that's what real artists do. They live off their art, their work, their unique work, not somebody else's branding or somebody else's message. It's my thing, my whole thing. I started this Real Animator community, Real Animator training, Real Animator stream, AMB animation. And after tasting that, I thought to myself, my God, I never want to go back to the industry ever again. If it was for an extraordinarily large sum of money, for the sake of my family having a deserving lifestyle, a lifestyle that I believe they really truly deserve, that I'm still working towards giving them, then I would consider doing it. But for those reasons alone, I wouldn't do it because I feel that the industry was a place where I really want to be. Unless I got the opportunity to work with people who I truly know that I would learn something from, right? Let's just do that. That makes a world of difference, right? So we've taken this key here. So now I like this extreme. So that's our pose. Nothing much going on in the chat. So let's just continue with this. So now the last pose, we just do a trace back. So there's a reason I did this, because the last pose, we just close the mouth and do something to the hand. So we're just going to basically close his mouth. So I need to delete that. So his mouth closed. How does his mouth close? Does his... Okay, so his head just gets slightly thinner. His eyes are more in... All of this is in the same place. All right. Does his stop bill move? This is the things I want to check. Let's see. Does his stop bill move? Not really. Right, we just close the mouth. Subtle stuff. Right. So we're going to close this mouth. And what happens is his head just gets a little bit thinner there, but I think that's more due to the bad trace back, right? Because I don't see any reason why his head would get a little bit thinner. His eyes are still where his eyes are. And all of this is a trace back. I'm keeping this all as a trace back. What I will do is I will just do a little bit of movement on this, just in case his head gets thinner due to the settle of this thing here, right? So there we go, right? Now everything else is a trace back except for his hand, right? Which just comes up, right? So there's a little bit of movement in there to keep this guy alive besides his mouth, right? And then this for some reason has also got a little bit of movement in it. So I think it's a moving hold, right? They're holding the drawing with a bit of movement, and everything else is kind of like a trace back. So his beard comes out like this. Right. I've made him a little bit too tall, but so that's where that arm is there like that. And all of this is traced back. So this is all traced back. So I'm just gonna trace back using wrist drawing, right? So you people can see what wrist drawing is, right? So I'm just working with my wrists and not my fingers. You see how I can get a more accurate line? If I work with my finger, my range of motion is this, right? And then I try to bring my finger here like this. So I'm doing this with my finger, right? So my range of motion is just this. But if I move my wrist, my range of motion is greater, right? So let's watch what happens. Okay. So here's a finger one, not bad. Now here's a wrist one. Now I'm using a bit of elbow to bring it down, right? Because I can do that on this thing, right? So that's the difference. Now when I'm sketching and I'm really trying to work something out, I switch to my habitual thing, which is finger drawing, right? If you are habitually an elbow artist, then I think you're wired the right way, right? But over the years, always drawing in little sketchbooks and little things, I worked as an animator on 15 field paper and whatever, but as I used to teach myself how to draw as a kid, it was always in A4 sketch pads and things like that. I was a habitual finger drawer, right? But I've changed my habit. But when I go into the mode of this, I'm gonna do that. I think his eyes are closed throughout. Here they're open, it doesn't matter, right? So let's take a look. We've still got a bit of work to do, but these are like, this is 2 hours 25 minutes. We're gonna throw in some of the breakdowns, right? So he jumps down and he does that, right? So that's a nice little action that we've studied, right? But look at the sack, is just beautiful. Like what I thought about the sack is pure weight, right? Everything is a downward weight while he's moving from here on in, like boom, right? And then naturally this hand comes here and the sack comes down there like this. Just wonderful. Boom. Love it. I see, we don't really even need to throw in the breakdowns, and I think you get the message, but I'm going to throw in some more. Let's see what happens between here and here. I'm going to draw in red so we can do that. But let's see. Pressing on the wrong screen. Let's go right back. So I'm going to work a bit faster with the breakdowns. Okay, so this is 1, 2, 3, right? So what do we start? We start here. So between here there's 1, right? So there's just 1 frame between these two. So I'm going to turn on my next panel. So we'll use the light box a little bit here because we need to determine the arc, right? So this is what I would call a breakdown. So halfway, right? Yeah, it's a halfway. He's got the foot coming down and it's coming down like this, right? So we've got a triangle shape and we're just going to make it like this. All of that also previous see, I'm saying halfway, but I need to pay attention. So this is a lot bigger here. And this is where the foot comes, right? So all of this little kind of observation that I was doing with the Donald Duck character while drawing, I was kind of learning Donald Duck's construction and his shape. So I may have been a little bit off and a little bit out, but now I feel more confident to quickly scribble the character and not, although I'm copying, not copy so much, right? Just instinctively know, okay, that's a shape. I don't care if I'm right, 100% right or 100% wrong. Well, you can't. I care if I'm 100% wrong, but, or a little bit wrong, shall we say. Right, so now we're going to go from here. We're going to see what happens. So down here, right, so there's 1 in between here and here, and it's not an in-between. I'm going to call this a breakdown, right? The reason I'm going to call it a breakdown is because an in-betweener would just plonk it in between. So there's still a bit of the fireplace here, right? And what we're doing is we're really going to play with the the torso, right? And we've got a bit of anatomy coming here on the foot, right? So this is very much animator's mind, right? So this foot is coming down with the weight. It's curling down here like this. 1, 2, 3, right? This is probably, now you see I'm learning the shapes of Donald Duck, and you can see I'm intuitively starting to animate those shapes in the character. So here we've got the hip of the duck, right? Which is like this. Right? And there we got the hip, and this is where the stomach is, and we're already squashing and stretching with that. Now I remember the squash and stretch of the foot, you see, so it's not going to be so difficult for me to understand now. It's simply just in the shape like that, right? Because I trained myself to learn the squash and stretch of Donald's foot, right? It looks a bit weird, but it really is that, right? I could improve it a little bit by just bending that a bit right there like that, right? So now that's how that goes. So this is now gonna be 1/3, right? 2/3 away from this drawing and 1/3 closer to this drawing, right? So an in-betweener may understand that. That's not what's beyond the in-betweener's mindset. But the in-betweener perhaps would not have the ability to put in the delay, the drag, or to do it well, right? To the level of what this guy is. So he's still got his arm up there, and now he's got the beard hiding what's going on. And we're kind of like getting his head back here like this. And his arm has come through here. Right? So we've got his arm here, and his hand is this way. And the sack is probably coming through the fireplace like this. I can't see anymore. They're probably really stretching that, and there's a bit of the fireplace cutting off from there somewhere, right? Yep. So we've got this going on. So here he's got his Santa outfit, and his head is back here with the eye, the bill of the mouth. See, I don't have to get this head right, but I want to, because I want to put into practice the things that I've been learning, right? It's not quite right, but it'll do for that there, right? So that's that breakdown, right? 2/3 of the way to really feel the weight of the landing. So there's a halfway one between here and here and here. Then this 1/3 or 2/3, depending on which drawing, to really feel the weight here. Now there's another drawing between here and here because we're going to slow in. So this drawing could arguably be an in-between, right? So let's have a look at it. This is on 2s. People were talking about 2s and 1s, right? So this is an in-between, and this is halfway, right? Because the reason this is halfway is because we've already got our third and our big jump here, so we don't want any more big jumps. We just want something halfway between here and here, right? So this is going to come halfway between here and here, right? We got the hand, so everything is, there's no variable spacing, well they may be, but when I checked I didn't see, so maybe they might be delaying this hand, but I doubt it. The sack is the sack is the thing being delayed, right? To give it weight, right? Like that. Oh, it still comes through, right? Okay, so there's probably a lot of squash and stretch on this sack. I think it's still coming through the fireplace at this point. This thing will in between down. And this foot will be pretty much as is. So now the head is just a simple halfway, and we will not place and trace it. We'll work with the construction, right? So one eye is closed there, one eye is closed there. He's got an upper lid and a lower lid. He's got his eyebrows, right, like that, with a little bit of a crease above. His little hair sits in between. Now here's where the bill of his beak is. Comes up like that. And we've got it comes out, and it's like this. But then this angle is going to be like this somewhat, but there's the beard in the way, right? So my mistake was doing this. Again, the ball in which you draw this guy's head is what can screw you up, right? So I'm going to close that beak for a minute because there's a follow through of the beard stuck to it, which is throwing me off a little bit, right? So the beard is still very much follow through and overlap on that. Then we've got the hat coming down, and there's a little bit of follow through of the bauble on the hat there, like this, right? So there's a slow in movement there like that. Let's take a quick look at the first section there. Boom, right? So that really adds to the weight of it, right? Boom. Now next, see how we're doing for time. I should soon begin studying the timing, gesture and do's of animation for starters. I think you know the best way to study is to do that with a bouncing ball, right? That's the easiest and quickest way because you're not trying to draw anything, right? So next, now we come up. There's a lot going on here. So let me find what I think is the key frame. I think this is the key frame. So between here and here I'm going to put another key, because then the breakdown needs to be made. So how many spaces away is that? I would say that that's so we come up a third backwards. And then that's halfway. But then he's coming up on thirds in between. Okay, so this is halfway, but his timing is thirds. What I've done wrong here is I've got the arc wrong, right? I've put a very traditional bouncing ball arc here. Really what happens is he arcs back up here a bit, right? He comes up like back up here, right? So this is a slight error that I've done. This drawing should have been more like this, right? I pushed it too much this way, right? So I've seen what I've done wrong there. Now I can't really change that without redrawing it. So I have to kind of like, what I'll do is I'll instead of doing a straight up arc like that, I will do it like this, right? Now I'll put it halfway. See, so this is a great lesson learned, right? You learn a lot from the mistakes you make, right? Whether what I've done looks great, because my little scrubbing looks really good, right? But I've learned that I missed something in the keys. I didn't look at the arc good enough. I assumed, right? that it's a normal basic bouncing ball arc, right? And it wasn't. In fact, the arc that he put was more anatomical. It was more according to the weight of the hip and the step rising, right? Whereas I put too much forward momentum into my arc, right? Now, had I just got that right, the reason I'm telling you this, right, is because contrary to what some of my discreditors might think, is I'm not here to boost my ego, right? Because you guys wouldn't have even known, right? I could have just said, yeah, it looks all great, and this goes here halfway. But I really want you guys to improve, and I want you to know that one of the best ways you can improve, one of the best ways to learn lessons, is to see that the faults you make, the so-called missteps or mistakes, are actually the right steps, because they're the steps that expose something to you that make you learn and go, oh, I missed that. I better look out for that next time. I was assuming the arc, and I missed the opportunity to have a more interesting arc, and I just went for the basic, right? And always in my streams, what I try to teach you is never go for, when you understand and you're intermediate, advanced enough, don't do the basic arc. This is why we don't have just keys and breakdowns, and we have extreme keys and breakdowns, is to get better arcs. That's what I truly believe. Because when you get better arcs, you need to define more interesting arcs rather than having such clean, easy arcs. If you have such clean, easy arcs all the time, then of course you may as well just have two keys and put a breakdown, and there you go. Put the in-betweens in for the rest of the timing, right? But we want to make sure that our arcs are more interesting. They make the movement more interesting, the path, the journey more exciting. So if that's the case, then you need more than just two extremes and a breakdown point, right? Or two keys and a breakdown point. You need to have extremes, keys, and breakdowns. So this foot is just a weird shape coming up there like that. And we have the arm. The arm is hair, actually. My beard is out. I'm having to actually I have to keep the beard there because I made the wrong art choice. He's going in a different path, so his hands and this pose I'm gonna have to improvise to suit my art, right? So there we go. So we've got something like that. So this is a keyframe, right? But if we really want this to feel right, how are we doing for time? 2:42. We got plenty of time. Let's see what's going on in the chat. I definitely had to force it, but I'm so happy I can draw with my elbow and shoulder now. Awesome. Yeah, well, you will get better and do things you didn't do before, Silver Sun, if you just understand that that's already happening. Now, we come out of this on a third. So 1/3 of the way up between hair and hair, right? His head is 1/3 of the way up. This is a really interesting breakdown, right? And this is why breakdown are not done by in-betweeners, because as we open his eyes, look what we're going to do, right? We're not just going to open both eyes in a boring way, right? We're going to keep one eye less so than the other, or more so than the other, right? All right. And we're going to have the bill, which comes down. Depending on what era of Donald, there's subtle changes to the way his bill is drawn, right? And of course, if you're doing 90s characters like Darkwing Duck, however great they are, like, I would much rather draw like the 40s, 50s style. Just stronger in every way, right? Not so graphic, not so easy for farmed out studios to mimic, right? More illustrative, more artistic. Right, so here we have so this comes up on a third to really help the weight of this. The beard starts to come down. Of course, I've got to... What's going on with the arm? Let's see. The arm is on a half. The arm and the body is on a half. Okay. So all of this is on half, not third, right? So this is on half. This comes here like that. This is going to go in a circle, right? So it's going to go below the next frame because it's going to circle around, right? It's going to be a three-dimensional arc, this bubble on the head, right? So we're going to put that there like that. And this is what happens to the hips, right? So I'm going to pay attention here. I'm not just going to draw a bauble. I'm going to look at the hip mechanics. So this is like how he would walk, right? So we're going to come up and forward, right? We're not just going to stretch into that, right? We're going to come up. We're going to feel the weight of the guy's hips. Right, and this is what we talk about in the basics of real animator training all the time. The pelvis of the character is so important to getting your animation to be convincing, as is the scapular belt, right? The clavicle and the scapula. Like, I've seen great, well, I don't know if they're great, but people, reputable animators, right, who have worked on some great things, who I used to perhaps think were great, producing cycles and sharing them on Instagram and LinkedIn. And I look at it and I say it's just flapping arms with no scapular movement, no clavicle or scapular movement. Thus, there's no weight to the cycle. They can time it however much they want. But if the arcing of the scapula doesn't convey accurate movement, then it's going to feel very, very just like flapping arms. You can say it's a cartoony cycle, but you need to have the feeling of bones and structure in there. So here we can see how that is now really giving some weight to the sack as he lands. It lands on his back, right? Now this whole sack on his bag thing, his ball bag, mate. Now his own ball sack or whatever. Now his own sack on his bag is. I can't think of any other way to say it. The sack falls on his back, right? You'll have to excuse my British double entendre, even though that's a French word. The sack lands on his back and we feel the weight there, right? Then it comes down like that. So it all makes sense as I start putting the breakdowns in, right? And it becomes a very, very nice piece of animation. Right, so next we're going to look at what the next frame is. So we have this and this. I feel like I don't need to do the breakdown between hair and hair, right? But there's a lot of hang down there. But I'm going to do this one. So this is okay. There's one frame between hair and hair, right? Which is very, very the head is almost a favor, right? So the head kind of sticks up there. And it's going to change, it's going to straighten up. Actually, I've got to be mindful of this beak. The beak is straightening up. We want that to in between properly. So this is a breakdown drawing. We can't do anything crazy with the arc. We can do something with the overall arc of the character, but not with the individual separate kind of shapes or aspects of the character, like his bill, right? His beak. We can't change the arc of everything. We can change the arc of the overall movement in a breakdown, but we can't really make, otherwise we're going to lose form, we're going to lose volume, right? It's not going to happen, right? So we got to make sure that there's some consistency. So he's going into a blinking eye shape here, and the body itself is 1/3, but the head is a favor, right? This is 1/3. This arm comes up here, so the arm's almost 2/3 of the way, is it? Let's have a look at that hand. Yeah, I'm right. So that actually comes this way. And my proportions of the character are a little off, so my placement's going to be off, but I'm not caring about that. I'm caring more about my spacing. 2/3 of the way away from the previous extreme. So then we're going to have this here like this. Pum, pum, pum. Now this hand, we need to figure out the spacing of the hand. Bum, bum. Okay, that's the arc, but it's 2/3 of the way, right? So it's going to be this. We're not going to go like this and put it here, or put it here, right? We have to straighten that because the body's coming forward and up like this, which is, I'm going to put the body kind of on a half, right? This arm is going to be 2/3 of the way, but the arc is going to be different, right? So this is where the learning is done, the studying of the arcs Arcing, timing, slowing in and slowing out is everything when it comes to the movement of the character. And your command of those things will result in the excellence of the work that you produce. What's going on with the bag? The bag simply just goes halfway. Like that. So this comes here. This is a really important breakdown. So now we introduce the other foot. So we just see this weird foot here like this, but now we're going to come in. We're going to bring in the triangle shape of the other foot. Like that. And we're going to change the path and put in some follow through or some drag rather on that foot, in the position of the foot, like that. Right, that's good enough. It's a bit ugly, but it's good enough. It can be, right. So this will give a little bit of nice hang time to that, and we can see the mouth action taking place. Right? Boom. Look how alive look how cloth-like and soft the hat bobble is, how heavy the sack is, and everything else is just proportionate to the humanoid animal style movement. Lovely stuff. Right. So next we are going. Yeah. No. I don't know. Like sack in England was, just use your imagination. I mean, maybe British slang has changed. I'm an old guy in almost my 50s, so I don't know what it is now, but I knew what it was back then when I. Right. So now we're going to go from here to here. I think that there is not much in between. No, I'm not gonna do an in between there. It just is as it is. So what's this? Okay, and there's just one in between here and here. So this you could call again, it's 2/3 of the way, but the hand, everything else is on a half, but the face is 2/3 of the way. Right, okay, so there we are. Right. So everything here is simply halved. So I will just plot my halfway points on those things. Right. And this foot we can't see so much of, but the sack is covering that. And even that's on a half. So all of this is kind of coming down. This will give even more weight to the sack, right? Now I've started that whole thing about sack. It's going to haunt me for the rest of the stream. But there we go. It's going to go here like this. Isn't it funny, human beings and their little weird quirks and ideas of humor and vulgarity and what's vulgar, what's not vulgar, what makes something funny. We'll call this, and This will actually also mean that in slang. And right, so this is simply going to be like this, right? I've found what I want to do. So the hand is still very much turned upwards. So the in-between of the hand, though the spacing is halfway, where we're actually we're opening out our thumb a bit more, right? So this is why I say that, like, in my mind, this is more of a breakdown than an in-between, right? Because the average in-betweener won't really know to keep the hand like this. He'll just put it like halfway in-betweening to the next hand, right? Alright, so now the head is, what was it, 1/3 or 2/3? Oh, 1/3, right, 1/3. So we're going to keep this head position, and we're just going to move it 1/3, and we're going to keep that mouth, just close that mouth a little bit. So that's why we're doing the head on 1/3, to delay the opening mouth so we can see and feel that mouth shape in action. The eyes will be opening. Now I'm starting to really draw the character like I know him, right? Without even looking at I'm looking because I want to get my thing accurate like what he's done, but I'm kind of feeling, oh, I know that shape. I know that shape. You see, I've drawn Donald Duck before on my streams, but only for my streams and only for things like this. I don't spend much of my spare time. So if you're thinking you've already drawn Donald Duck, how have you forgotten him? Well, it's what happens when you move on to other projects and you're busy developing your own style and your own things. You don't remember exactly, but it's all easy. It's easy. These shapes are all based on things to so it's not hard to get it back, right? Providing you have the know-how. Always share with you books that I've read that have helped me get to where I get, and one of them was The Success System That Never Fails by W. Clement Stone. 3 things are required: inspiration to action, specialized knowledge, and know-how, right? So that's what helps you with success, to successfully do things. So we are nearly done. Just a few breakdowns left to do, but we can see how. Now this definitely needs a breakdown, right? Because now that bit sticks out like, oh, what happened to the flow, right? But this, what you're getting here, is almost like a masterclass seminar where you're just watching me break down somebody else's work and talk to you about it. Donald Duck claws looking like a big fluffy pillow hair. Donald claws, yeah. Sacked, I mean getting fired. No. But means swinging actual heavy sack or back. Okay. You know what? I'm not going to tell you. Because let's keep things nice and maybe my head's the one that's in the gutter, right? So good stuff. Good show. Let's leave it at that. Thank you. I'm actually glad that people don't think like the way they used to, like people from my generation. The lingo has changed now. So thankfully I can use the word sack without any fear now. Awesome. Amazing. Right. I'm so happy that every time I use that word on my live streams, I always feel because I'm worried. Okay, awesome. Right, that's great. Thank you, Mage. Right, so let's work out the the breakdown between hair and hair, right? One left to go. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. It's almost mechanical, this, right? So he comes like that. Right. So the arc so this comes like this, and this comes up and back. So it's like this kind of arc, right? So the reason why I'm making a big deal out of this is because I thought this drawing had balance issues and it didn't. And I changed one of the arcs, which caused me to my thing to work a bit differently, which is why I thought there was bad. So I'm trying to get my head round this, right? So okay, so this is nice. We get a shift in weight by what his belt's doing. Awesome. Right, and this is important because the sack will then have more weight when he does this, depending on the space. So this is going to be 1/3 of the way, which helps the space. It's so funny, since I've been doing my own projects and I've been economizing a lot more, I've been using anime timing to get things done quicker with less in-betweens, and I'm using favors more. If you watch the earlier live streams, I was a Disney purist, and I still kind of know that it's the best way, to be honest with you, but well, there is no best way. It depends on what you're doing, but it is just a technically superior way. So here I'm working on thirds a lot more again now, right? Thirds are a great way when you're working on twos to do great cartoon animation. So that's not right. This is something I just have to make sure I animate. Right, okay, that roughly is about it, but I'm going to obviously draw it in a little bit nicer than that. So I do occasionally look at the chat, but it seems like the people who are watching are just happy to either just do their work and leave me on, which is what I do with a lot of audiobooks and things that I like on YouTube, so fair play. Or you're just enjoying watching this animation unfold. So that's great. People's attention spans are all good in the real animator training community. Mage Burger is still awake. What's the time? Oh, 3:44 here is 2:44 in the UK. Not too bad. I haven't had any breakfast yet, and I normally have my break my fast and have it at dinner time or lunch time. But that's good. As an old timer, I need to keep up my intermittent fasting and my training to stop the middle age spread. Right, so this comes around like that. Let's just go ahead and put the sack in. The foot wheel trace. Make sure that's there like that. I like what they do with the coat. They change the angle of the coat as he leans back, right, to emphasize the weight shift. It really adds to the wave with this bounce effect where he comes up and his arm bounces down. And open. There we go. That's that. Right. And there's a few more in between here and here to settle that, but I'm not going to do that. I just have done enough. I've actually done most of the frames, bar a few. Oh, and now the bug's going to happen. Here we go. Good job I saved it. It hasn't crashed, but look what happens when I bring it into the screen again. Whoa. All because I pressed Control Save by changing my window. Right. What a bad thing to do. What a wrong thing to do. Right, so here we are. That's it. Merry Christmas. Right. And he comes back on himself like that. Jumps through the fireplace and says Merry Christmas. Just funnily out, last time I did my own Woody Woodpecker from imagination, and here's what I did. So you can see that my movement is too subtle in comparison, right? My cartoon movements, right? It's nice, but that's my rough blocking. Look at the a natural cartoon animator will do a big movement like this, right? So it was after doing that Woody Woodpecker stream that I said to myself, I'm going to go back to cartooning. Monty Python, yes. I'm a kid from the 80s. Sacked to mean to go from getting canned or fired. Not in the UK. Well, you do get the sack in the UK too, but I'm glad that that's what you thought it was. Right, so there we go. Right. Goodness me. Now I'm going to cause people to look on the internet, and I'm going to be responsible for corrupting people's minds. I should have kept my mouth shut. Right, so here we go. That's it. That is our breakdown study of the Donald Duck animation. And I think it's looking, let me just look at it playing on the live stream. It's looking rather special. I can't take credit for it because it's not my animation, but I think I did a good job in breaking it down and studying to you just how you can really understand what pose to pose is, as well as work your solid drawing, as well as understand arcing, timing, slowing in and slowing out, and all the other laws. But you do it within the framework of pose to pose. Okay. Now, we have been streaming for 3 hours, 18 minutes, and I haven't talked about the sponsor for this show. The sponsor for this show is myself. Now, I've had a few very lovely people showing me some appreciation on stream and giving me donations. There's a link in the description as is written on the stream. So if you feel that I have helped you out in any way, shape or form, or you'd like to buy me a Christmas drink just to say thank you, then please do click on that link in the description, and it'll take you to this page here, which is the AMB animation donation page. Hang on. Am I on the screen yet? The AMB animation donation page. So you click yes, I'd like to donate to AMB, and you can choose each one of these. But if you don't want to give me be limited to this and you want to say other, you can make it as little or as much as you like, and whatever it is, I'll be very, very grateful for that. So thank you so much to those of you who have donated to me, not just today but also in the past. It is I'm very grateful, and it helps, keeps things going. The other thing is the Real Animator Training Library, the world's best learning resource in the craft of hand-drawn animation. Today you have watched me look at a old master's animation and live break it down to an exceptionally high level while explaining to you what pose to pose is, straight ahead, arcing, timing, slowing in, slowing out. Let's talk about them, okay? The reason that I was able to do this animation very effortlessly and to learn from it was because I was looking for things, right? When you're learning things, you're looking. Now people are looking to improve. But improve at what? Improve at animation. But animation is essentially made up of 12 principles, or what we call, I have turned into 12 laws, because I think principles are better understood by the wider masses as laws, right? You can't really break them unless you can only work with them. So when people say I break this law, you're working with it. You're aware of it, and you're aware of the consequences of it. You're never breaking it. You're working with it. If you break it, then you will suffer the consequences of breaking it. So any smart aleck who says laws are there to be broken, before you can even talk about a law and breaking a law, working with a law, you gotta damn well understand the law, right? So animation is based on 12 laws. We have got 6 laws of movement, and we've got 6 laws of life, right? And so when I was doing this, I was looking for the 6 laws of movement, and I was looking for the 6 laws of life. So the first law of movement that I was looking for was arcing, right? And I was also looking for timing, which is actually arguably the real first law, but because you got to have an arc and a timing, and they go hand in hand. So these 3 are the first things I'm looking for: slowing in and slowing out. Why slow in and slow out? Because that's how we get the illusion of weight, right? Which is why I was struggling to figure out this sack when I was doing it. So then we look at arcing, timing, slowing in and slowing out. I also said to you at the beginning of the stream that I was going to be doing it using pose to pose. And I discovered that there was half of this, or the first part of this animation was probably done with straight ahead, right? Although I was looking for pose to pose, what are the extremes, what are the keys, what are the breakdowns, pose to pose, straight ahead, figuring out the action, and then picking those essential poses, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4 laws. Then I was also talking about follow through, drag and overlap, right? I was looking for that stuff, and I was looking to keep my drawings solid, right? So these were the 6 laws of movement that I was looking for when I was doing this, which is why I was able to replicate it effortlessly while talking to you all on a live stream, right? It's not hard. It's just because I understand the laws, right? I could pretend to you that this takes a real skill, and I'm a master and I'm so much better than you, and you listen to what I'm saying. But here I'm giving the game away. I just know these laws. If you know these laws and you truly know them as well as I know them, it'll be that easy for you. The 6 laws of life are also things I'm looking for. I'm looking for squash and stretch, right? I'm looking for anticipation. I didn't find much in this, right? But I guess hair in elements like this, where he comes down and he jumps up, the whole thing is an anticipation of the end action, and this leads me to a very complicated law of life, which is why this is masterful. He's the staging, right? This anticipation is found in this, right? Primary and secondary action. I'm looking for that. Primary and secondary action is the stuff that puts personality into this character, right? So what's putting personality into this character is he is trying to, in the story, he's trying to fool the two chipmunks, Chip and Dale, that he's Father Christmas coming to give them presents. So he's putting on a big show. So his whole acting has to convey a sense of anticipation. And it also comes into primary and secondary action, which is found in the staging of the scene, which is another law. So I'm looking for all these things and trying to give them context. Has the animator thought about this in his performance? Which he clearly has. So that's why I can tell you that. Right? You can say, where's the anticipation? Where's the primary and secondary? Look at the staging. Look at the staging. Look at the context. That's why he's acting that way. Then we have got exaggeration and appeal, right? So, why did I study this, right? Last live stream, I just took Woody Woodpecker and quickly blocked this out, right? I thought it was pretty good. It looks pretty good. But in my mind, I'm thinking, you know what? I've been doing a lot of hardcore, more humanoid, comic book style characters. I feel I'm kind of lacking in my cartoon. Next live stream, I'm going to study some real cartoon, right? This was me being exaggerated, right? It's exaggerated. But let's look at this. This is exaggerated much nicer, right? So, exaggeration and appeal is what I was looking to learn when I studied this, right? Because you can never stop learning, no matter how good you are, how experienced you are, what you think. If you think you got nothing more to learn, then it's time to leave this earth and ascend to a higher plane, right? So these are the things I was looking for, right? And that's why this was effortlessly recreated on your live stream, which I've given to you for free. Now, when I built this library, I built many archives, right? So you click on Real Animator Training and you click Join Now, and I will show you. When you decide to purchase an archive, you can either purchase training archives or edutainment archives. And a stream like this, you can find dozens of them in the edutainment archive, right? So very quickly, if you enjoyed this breakdown stream for a very small fee, right, less than a pair of Nike trainers, you can go into Animation Breakdowns archive and you can watch me breaking down Disney squirrels from Sword in the Stone, right? So this is a 3-hour live stream. This is a 3.5 hour. So just like today's live stream, right? You see me, law of staging, multiple. So you can watch me break that down. You can watch me break the Thundercats intro, just a small portion of the Thundercats intro. You can watch me break that down. You can watch me study a good piece of Warner Brothers animation, Yosemite Sam. You can watch me study a fight scene from Disney's Robin Hood. You can watch me study a giant from Mickey's Christmas Carol. A ninja scroll, a sword fight in Ninja Scroll. An elephant walk from the Jungle Book. I believe that must be it. No, we got the rooster walk too. You can watch me study that. So, this archive, a Robin Hood scene. So here's all the things that you can watch. Roger Rabbit. I think I've left this one up free on YouTube. This one. Again, I got to press reset. That's one of the things about this server that I'm using, unfortunately. 101 Dalmatians. You can watch that. an anime run cycle. Wow, there's more in here than I thought, right? So if you enjoyed today's style, another one, Aristocrats. Wow, how many breakdowns have I done, right? So you can get all of Tramp running. That's it. Archive complete, right? Back to archive. So you can literally get all of these breakdowns for, you know, if you claim to be interested in animation, for the price of a pair of Nike trainers. Less, actually. So you can enjoy stuff like that, or you can go to the Real Animator Training Library training archives. And that's where you really train, right? Because in a stream like this stream that you've experienced today... Here's someone who joined my training library and then made... In a stream like this, what you've seen today, you've learned things and you've become motivated and inspired. But how are you really going to apply this to your own work, right? How are you going to get to do work like this without referencing from your imagination? How? That's where you've got to train, right? You can watch other people's courses, which are much like my edutainment courses, but I don't believe they're as skilled, or I don't believe they're as informative. Some might be very skilled, but I don't believe that they're as informative, and they don't share as much about the actual process. So you can watch their things, or you can watch my edutainment archive, which again I will stress is vastly superior to any of my alternatives. You can watch those, but they still won't help you do your own stuff or understand really how to make stuff move from your imagination, or look at reference and break it down the way I did in today's stream. There you're going to have to train. So remember how I talked about the 6 laws of movement and the 6 laws of life? Well, I've built this training system to aid you understand that. You can buy bundles to save money, but let's focus on what's in those bundles, or you can buy them individually. So the Basics Archive, you're going to study the 6 laws of life. And we had somebody in the chat talk about, I'm going to learn about arcing, timing in, and slowing out. Listen, if you try to learn those things by doing this and you don't really know those things, it's not going to happen. You need to be focused. You need to be zoned. So you need to know what it's like to draw an arc and just have a simple thing follow that arc. Like a bouncing ball or a swinging pendulum, right? You need to understand what halves are, what thirds are, right? What favors are. You need to understand how to use these things. You need to understand what an extreme is, what a key is, and what the breakdown is, right? And then what the in-betweens are, right? So I'm kind of showing you that in a very basic way at the moment. So you need to understand those first 3 laws of movement. That's what the Basics Archive does with all these various exercises. Ball, pendulum, basic walk cycle, standard walk cycle, jogging. So I'm not going to keep on going on and individually like boring you, right? Just look at the video if you're interested, right? Then you want to learn about these laws, the laws of life. How do we put life into movement? Most people today can barely understand movement with their awful, snappy, shitty, rigged puppet animation, you know, let alone put life into it. How do we put these squash and stretch, anticipation, primary and secondary to get things that look like this, right? Well, that's where the intermediate archive comes in. You see, I don't begin with a flour sack or a bean bag. I begin with the bouncing ball and the swinging pendulum and the stick man, right? Because the stick man shows you and inspires you a little bit where you can take the circle and the line of the pendulum, right? Then we want to play around, we want to put life into things and not just movement. That's where we learn these flower sack exercises. So again, you learn about squash and stretch, solid drawing, anticipation, follow through, overlap and drag, primary and secondary action, law of staging, 4-step human walk cycle, basic quadruped walk, quadruped trot, quadruped canter, quadruped suspension. Again, this video will have all of the insights into what happens, what you'll be doing in there, right? In those classes. Once you learn all that, what about drawing the character on model? I've learned all those things, but my drawing on model, my cartoon drawing sucks. I don't know how to keep the model consistent. I don't understand model. Well, here we go into the advanced archive, where we consolidate all of the 12 laws, but we understand what the secret science of shape simplification is. Here I will click on some of these to give you an insight. So you're going to learn about a 360 head rotation, building a very mechanical style, but learning a little bit about how model and shapes sit on construction in a very, very technical way, which you can either persist with or then loosen up once you understand it and start to get more intuitive. But it's important to understand that. Then we go on to a full body with this 15-part course of turning a character around, learning about simple shapes, muscles, turning muscles on those simple shapes, learning how to maintain the consistency to create this illusion. You know, this is a 15-part lecture series. So you put a character model on top of that. You'll then start to learn advanced walk cycles, but with character model. You'll have to do this dog and maintain the model of this dog while you're doing it. And somebody asked me a question about Disney's gargoyles earlier. People like Cameron Alan Davidson Black, who still needs to work so hard with his drawing, has worked his way through these archives, but he can draw to model. When you look at his personal drawing, you might think Cameron still has a bit to go. And that's okay, he does. But he has proven that he can draw and animate to model. And he can do it professionally, because he has recreated this dog walk cycle, and his drawing is very similar to mine. So I'd like you to think about that, Dylan. I wasn't actually bigging you up when I was saying that you could animate on gargoyles, even though that made you feel good. I'm glad it made you feel good. And if I want to big you up, I'll big you up. I don't need to say that, right? I was trying to make you aware that to work on shows like that, the skill level, you already have that from the real animator training library. So when Cameron's trying to do his own stuff, he's still a bit struggling, but he's already got the skill set that he can come on board somebody else's project and assist and in between and keep it on model. He's still got a bit to go to be an animator of a professional standard, but he's already a professional assistant animator as far as I'm concerned. So somebody like Cameron could easily hold down a job assisting on shows like Gargoyles and Animaniacs and stuff like that. Because if he can take an exercise like this dog walk, right? Let me just find the thing in the preview to show you, right? He can take this dog walk, right? And walk actions in this looping sequence, just to refresh your memory. So the final animation, when it's all fluid, looks something like this. So we'll just have a look. So this is all on ones. So we are going to be timing it on ones today. But for some reason, we are going to be breaking it into sections. There's a little bit of looking at each section, pixelation going on that. Timing each section out accordingly in order to get our results using the secret science of shape. So Cameron basically could draw like that when he's following keys, and even he creates the keys himself. He copies my character and he in-betweens it and animates it. So he's got the skill to do that. He's got the skill to animate on a gargoyles, right? Not necessarily maybe key animate, but he can in between, right? Or he can follow the layout drawings. So what those guys do is actually Cameron can animate on a gargoyles, because somebody would do the layout drawings, and the layout drawings on shows like that are actually animation keys and extremes done in the West and written on an X sheet, and then they're just given to those guys in the East to fill it in, right? And Silver Sun is capable of that. Mage Burger, I believe, is even capable of that. Cameron Black is capable of that. So I just want to make you guys aware that you're a lot better than you think you are, some of you who are still working through real animator training. I know what you want. I know you want to be at least at my level, right? Or even half of that. Or even like, but I want to make you guys aware that you already actually are a lot better than you think you are. And the more you work and you study at these things, the more you continue on the journey without frustration, which is why I love Cameron so much. The guys just continue. Why I give him so much of my time is because he's got the right attitude. He really has. I actually wish I had his attitude. That's something, even now, I tell you, because I preach a lot, but I don't practice at least half of what I preach sometimes, and I get frustrated too, right? So the thing is, he's got the right attitude. He really has. So this is you got advanced. You've now got the new professional lectures archive. Before I go, let's quickly talk about that. For some of you who missed it, this archive is just amazing, but it's for people that want to do filmmaking rather more so than animation. But it's you know, it's got a hardcore animation lecture in there, so it's you know, it's, if you want to be a filmmaker, that's not going to be of much value to you, that 9-part dialogue lecture. But I mean, just look at the storyboard. Let's just have a quick look. So the Professional Animation Lectures Archive is extremely powerful and useful for you if you are a highly experienced animator, if you have completed the basics, intermediate and advanced archives of the Real Animator Training Library, or if you are looking to start making your own film and you wish to learn about storyboarding and layout. So let's take a look at the lecture structure in here. We begin with an overview called The Law of Staging, Filmmaking Fundamentals for Story Artists. We'll have a look in greater detail at these videos after this. So actually, you can watch this in your own time. The reason why I was playing you this is I've just added a new 14-part lecture series in here called How to Storyboard an Animated Intro or Music Video. And it is really, really awesome. You watch me storyboard an awesome intro sequence for a show I'm developing from scratch. And let's see if I can just play you a little bit of that intro. We would have done it at the beginning of the show. Round about here. Okay, here it is. Let's play you a little bit of that intro. We go talking more about other things, summing up other things. We're gonna watch the animatic now. So let me just open up the animatic. Stand by. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to also take off the double mic so you can hear it with the sound without interference. So I've kind of explained all these things to you, and now you're going to watch the finished animatic after having a brief look at the rough. So I want you to understand that the rough needed to be perfect in order for this to be as good, well, as perfect as it could be in order for this to be as good as it is. Because it is pretty amazing. But the only reason it's amazing is because the rough is amazing, right?
Soaring through the stars to free the universe from the savage spirits. Apollo continues his quest to merge the power centers and charge his Infinity Blade to triumph over the evil energy of Phoberos. Raise the Infinity Sword. Fulfill your destiny.
Okay.
Become the Alpha.
So you want to see more of that? Just stay tuned to AMB Animation, where I'll be revealing more of that for my YouTube people, of that show as I'm developing it. But the intro, I storyboarded the intro over 14 parts. You can watch how to storyboard something that looks that badass. And yeah, so that's the new professional archive. The early bird price for this archive is no longer there, because it's now got enough hours and content in there to warrant it being a serious archive to purchase after the advanced archive. So there we go. That is AMB Animation Real Animator Training Library, the world's best learning resource in the craft of hand-drawn animation. Many of you will be thinking, in the world of AI, why should I take an animation course? Well, then don't. Carry on just sitting back and watching other people's stuff and moaning about the way of the world. Or you can be the artist that you know you are inside and understand that whatever happens, you're always going to be drawing. You love drawing. You love animation. You always want your life to have some purpose and meaning on this earth. And that's one of the only things that gives you any real joy. And and doing it well is why you spend so much of your free time watching me talk and draw. Hopefully one day you'll spend most of that free time drawing your stuff and really being in love with it and really being in love with your creations. And I always say it, a fisherman, some people still fish professionally, but a lot of people just fish for hobby. Some people learn martial arts. They've never had to use it as self-defense. They've never done self-defense in their life. They don't compete in the cage. They don't do anything, but they love to do martial arts. And I should know, because I was one of them. I don't really use it for self-defense. I don't walk down the street thinking, when am I going to use I got 20 years of experience. I've instructed people. I don't go competing in tournaments and having my nose broken and my teeth taken out, breaking my fingers that I like to. But I love doing it. I love breaking bricks and feeling that I'm mentally taking myself to new levels. And for what? For my own personal mental health and my existence on this earth. If you think that it's just about getting a job so you can afford a house and something, then why are you doing animation? Why is it? Maybe some of you wanted to be part of the industry machine. I get that, but it is what it is. But those of you who still want to draw and bring your drawings to life and have purpose, AI has got nothing to do with that. So real animator training is still very much for you, and it's always going to be here, which is why I saw the whole AI thing coming years ago. Because as far as I was concerned, the day Toy Story was made, the day South Park emerged, I said AI is here. Other people fooled themselves into thinking it was software, but the bar was lowered, and the machine was doing a lot of the monkey work. Now the machine has learned the monkey work. The machine has learned the tricks of digital painting. So artistry has to come on board again. Artistry. And I've always talked about hand-drawn animation and flowing. I've always talked about the old school animators. I've never really bigged up the new ones. And the more and more I learn, the less and less I will always have respect, but the less and less I have reverence for these 90s Renaissance animators. Because the more and more I learn, the less and less impressed I am. And the more I'm impressed at the masters, the 9 old men, the artists, before them. Industry, mechanized industry, economical way of doing things, so we're here to celebrate art, and my Real Animator Training Library is created for those of you, people like you, who celebrate art, who want to create art, who get joy, who have meaning in life, and know that it's the creation of art, your art, that makes life bearable for you, that if it was taken away from you, you would have a void that just would never be filled by any person, any video game or form of entertainment. You live for your art. I understand there's not many of us out there, but that's why I'm here. I'm here. They're the only people, you're the only people I cater to. I cater to those kind of people. The people who truly value the creation of art, and that's what who my library is for. Right, before I go, almost a 4-hour stream. Not much has developed in the chat, which is good because it means I can go. I'm not necessarily hungry, but I know that I should eat something. I'm gonna go. So if I don't see you guys before December 25th, maybe I might do another live stream. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to leave you with some things to think about. Christmas is the time of giving. Hopefully I've still got it memorized perfectly, but I don't. So I'm going to leave you with a couple of things from me to you. And the first is a poem called Giving. I forgot who wrote it. To get he had tried, yet his store was still meager. To a wise man he cried, his voice keen and eager, "Pray tell, how might I successfully live?" The wise man replied, "To get you must give." Of giving he said, "What have I to give? I've scarcely left bread, but of course I must live, and I would partake of life's bountiful store." Came the wise man's response, "Then you must give more." The lesson he learnt to get was forgotten, and he learned of his life a new love begotten, as he gave of himself a life of useful living. Then joy crowned his days, for he grew rich in giving. What does that mean? It doesn't simply mean giving yourself to people mindlessly and senselessly. It's actually Bushido, the code of the samurai. It is simply service. Service to a purpose, service to a cause. Your purpose, like my purpose, is to create art to the best of your ability, to create animation, to produce what is inside your head, to bring it about to the best of your ability. That's what it is. And ultimately, that's what giving is. Whatever you give to your purpose and you will receive. You will receive that. And that leads me on to my classic final poem that I always say on every stream. And maybe that puts it more into context. Do your work. Not just your work and no more, but that little bit more for the lavishing's sake. That little bit more that's worth all the rest. And if you doubt as you must, and if you suffer as you must, do your work. Put your heart into it and the skies will clear. Then from your very doubt and your very suffering will be born the supreme joy of life. Do your work, people. Always remember to keep it real. For those of you who are about to draw, I salute you. Paper is always king. Have a nice Christmas. Make merry. Celebrate. Peace, joy, love to you and your loved ones and your family. But make sure that even in your holidays, you set aside some time to do your work. Thank you very much, people. I'll see you all on the next live stream.